Live. Hello. We are live, I think. It says 5 seconds live. And we have with us today a guest. We got Risto. I guess that's the way to say
Yeah, it's short for Christopher.
Christopher.
Yeah.
And Finland, you said, right?
Yeah, but I have nothing to do with Finland.
Oh man. I was gonna ask you about that because my older brother was a Finnish missionary. So I know a little bit about Finland just from him. But
well, I went down a rabbit hole of Finnish sauna, as they say it there.
yeah.
And in that process, I learned that the nickname Risto was short for Christopher, like
Oh
the
really?
middle of the name. And actually, it was I met some LDS missionaries, and they started calling me Risto. So
I always wished I did something less plain and basic with my name when I was a kid. Like that, I saw Topher Grace come out with that Topher and then all that stuff. I'm like, man, I passed up on all this stuff, and I just rolled with Chris the whole time.
yeah,
But
most of my growing up was Chris too.
yeah, so we're rolling a couple weeks with Christopher's. Any Christopher can join the show, any Christopher at all, but nobody else. And they have to agree with us on all things and hold up everything we ever said and take rocks for whatever we've said too. So I'm just kidding about that. Flip is a polycelibate. It took me a second. When I read it there, when I was first looking at it, I thought it was like a long word. I'm like, what's that word? And then when I said it in real time, it ringed in my head. Rung in my head, I guess.
If what's her bucket can be asexual, but fantasizes about sex with men, nothing's off the table.
Asexual, polycelibate. I like it. I'm a benched apostle because they passed me again.
Oh, that's overlooked.
I mean, it had to have been. I mean, me and who's the activism against the church guy? I forget his name. It was either me or him, and it was somebody else. A-holes. Did you see who the new guy is? Do you follow the Mormons that hard?
I read it. I saw the name, but I don't.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I see it in the groups, mostly just when people post about it. Someone said he's a PR guy. That's about all I saw. I don't really know who anyone is.
What did you see, Flip?
Same thing. I read the news. I read the KSR article. But
that's all I saw too. I guess we should say too at the start. Chris, you go by Chris or Christopher or Risto? What should I call you here?
You just call me Risto.
I'll just go to Risto. Okay.
Yeah.
Risto, you are a watcher of the Mormon world from the outside of it, right? Never been in. You live in Minneapolis. Is it Minnesota?
Minnesota. Yep.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. Like, so how did you even get into following Mormon-y stuff at all?
Yeah, so I grew up evangelical, which is like a huge, broad term. Mm-hmm. Nazarene for anyone who's geeky at home. And like our camp was a little hostile towards Mormons.
Yeah. Was
So
there a ton around there? Well, you grew up there too?
Here in California, both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all over California and all that.
Yeah. I met some missionaries during COVID. And it was the first time I really had long-term conversations with any Mormons. And so that kind of started and it's kind of a place where I'm at in life anyway. It's just kind of curious about religious things beyond what I grew up with, So then I started learning more about it. Then,
but what's strange enough is it seems like the stuff that you follow or the people that you follow is you're able to follow the inside of weird niche inside stuff of Mormons already just in a few years.
Yeah, I tend to be geeky, so whatever I'm geeking out on, I like to get into the details.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's wild to me. You and Steve Pinecker, other people who just kind of get in on who's who of the I don't know, like the online world and stuff like that. Stuff my parents who are lifetime Mormons don't know anything about, you know, or maybe Flip's parents or something like that either.
Oh no.
Oh, Charlie's
Not a
already
chance.
begging here. So, what do you think of the Mormons in general?
Well, at the same time I've been like learning about Mormonism, I've also been learning about Catholicism, kind of those two.
Yeah.
And they're way different like than what I came from, which was I mean, there's not tons to learn, you know, but I feel like in the Mormon world, behind every door you open is some new, I'm learning some new thing. And it's the same with Catholics.
Catholic.
I mean, because I'm assuming you got exposed to evangelical truth about Catholic style apologetics.
More about Mormons, actually, not much
Oh,
about
really?
Catholics. No.
I don't know, because like I went through a long period. I went like for 10 years. I listened to conservative Christian talk radio,
Yeah.
gobs of it, and because I just remember like it's like there was a lot of Mormon stuff, but then like there was also a lot of stuff specifically about Catholics. They were a little different about it. They were a little, I don't know, softer touch with the Catholics, although I guess it depended, but yeah.
Yeah, and that might depend on which flavor. You know, Protestant is a huge umbrella.
Yeah.
Evangelical is a huge umbrella. So I think more of the like Calvinist Reform people are against Catholics. Like the crowd that I came from, we never really talked about Catholics.
Yeah.
Again, it was more like, you know, we talked about Mormons more than Catholics.
Fascinating.
That's wild. Yeah, what's up, Heinrich Dorfman? I've been kind of, I don't know if it feels like you for this when you watch Mormon stuff, because I watch a few Catholic channels, kind of some trad Catholic channels. I don't know if you know, like Nolan Knows and who's the other guy, Timothy something. They pop up on Jay Dyer's channel, who's Orthodox, and I listen to them, and sometimes like I keep listening when they're talking so much inside baseball. I have no idea what on earth they're talking about, but I just keep listening.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if Mormonism feels like that. But
it's kind of like sports radio a little bit, you know, like there's always, it's like, you know, the geeky things in sports radio that they're always talking about, the stats and everything.
The same thing, Maple Lake Mountain. Yeah, he's in the Longhouse, and he just goes by a different name there. I don't know if he just wanted his name in here, but yeah, we just asked him to pop on. Maybe he'll say who he is over in the Longhouse on the Facebook. But when I listen to evangelical stuff, it seems like just as much kind of inside baseball, but it's outside baseball, because it's kind of like these evangelicals versus these evangelicals versus these evangelicals, and I don't hear very much inside of the one evangelical, if that makes any sense. Like it's and I can't track it, I can't follow, I can't even like really tell who's who or what's what very well. But the Catholics are all inside baseball. Like everybody's like, well, I follow this pope and I follow this pope, and this guy's a pope splainer. And have you heard the term pope splainer?
Yeah.
That's so wild. Yeah, they call it pope splainer. Like anybody who's kind of trying to apologize for how woke or commie the pope is, they call him pope splainer. Like, he's not apologizing. This, you know, just kind of getting into that. And
yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like as I got into the Mormon world, like initially it was just learning some of the basics, and then it doesn't take too long to run across like, you know, John DeLynn or like the ex-Mormon world, you know. And as I'm going through that process, like I remember saying this like to my wife, is like, I feel like I'm losing my Mormon faith that I never had, you
know? That's the funniest thing ever. Is like that's so good. I love it. Oh my gosh, that kills me.
You hate that you're a straight white male?
I don't know, it kind of goes in line with like I feel like DeLynn is like a conversion to something, but whatever the heck it is like that's kind of what we've been trying to put our finger on over the years. But that's so hilarious. So I actually going along with like Pope's planning or whatever, I actually know a guy. It's the same guy I was talking about last week who talked about the sorry if I'm telling tales out of school. You know who you are, Ulysses, but he's a painter, and he went to all these things where the church was trying to pitch buying paintings from professional painters. And he said, first off, he said that church, that the Mormon church, undercuts them and says that they have to sell wholesale to them, which is, I guess, a great big problem for all the different artists, because there's something about, like, with your galleries and all this sorts of stuff, that you have to sell at your retail price to keep your pricing in a world where it makes sense, or it just always kind of like goes for what expectations are, because you kind of just set what your pricing is just by what it is out in the market, you know. And the church insists on undercutting it with wholesale. Did we all see Die Hard in AMC this week? Did they put Die Hard on AMC? I saw a funny tweet that somebody said, yeah, people are always talking about how Die Hard is a Christian movie, but what a lot of people don't realize is it has its roots in pagan history, and it actually started with the pagans, and you know, this kind of
I don't think I probably haven't seen Die Hard since 1992. I need to see it again. Like, I watched it a bunch of times, you know, in those early years, but I haven't seen it since I was 12 or 13, I bet.
I love it, but at the same time, I mean, I've said it on here before, so I'm a broken record, but it's the start of the divorced dad superhero. Up to that point, all the superheroes were Arnold and Sly Stallone and all that stuff, and then along came Bruce Willis, and since then it's been divorced dads. It's been straight Liam Neesons, who all are divorced dads. And what you gonna do? So Pope's planning. I made this a real stupid thing real quick here. Let me see if this is my I made a thing to judge a new apostle off of. This is my guess. This is my little hunch. This is my little scale I just invented. It's how managerial is the new apostle, and it's a scale of how much they're probably impressed by Dan McClellan. So if he heard Dan McClellan, I don't know if he's heard Dan McClellan, but you can still make the judgment off of him.
You need to put an is in there, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got how managerial the new apostle.
It's a grammatical. How managerial is the new apostle? I will write in is. Look,
I can tell that you're in the editor.
I'm so South Parky.
There we go.
How managerial is the new apostle? And I made this like 10 seconds before I went on. Why can't we cherry pick the Bible? I don't know if we should get into the thing of him and the big structuralism thing this week, but I already said that we're getting tired of Dan McClellan. But
yeah,
I'm guessing this dude is pretty. I'm guessing he's like an 8 or 9 would be impressed with Dan McClellan.
What's his name?
It's Kieran.
What if I just
Kieran?
What if I Google new apostle?
New apostle Kieran, Kearon, and all I've seen too does heavy duty work with refugees, and he is a PR person. And on top of that, the guy I was talking about, the painter, that's why I brought him up. That painter knows him personally, and he says that he's just a very, very nice, follow it by the book rules guy. Very, very nice. Very nice. Follow the rules. Very nice.
They always are.
Yeah.
That's one thing I thought, like, way back in the early days of Mormon expression, like, described how the quorum of the 15 actually meet and make decisions and stuff. And the whole system is totally designed, geared toward loyalty. Mm-hmm. It's very much, there's no way for somebody to be a maverick and shake things up the way it's set up, because like the quorum of the 15 like vote in order of seniority, you know, and by the time you've gotten there, you've already shown that you're willing to toe the line, you know. So like, yeah, like it's kind of funny, like where everybody complains like, oh, the church made a conservative choice. Like, well, yeah, it's extremely conservative in its very operations.
Well, this is sort of the angle, because like if you saw me with Jacob Hansen the other week, you know, I'm speaking all with him in all the areas we agree, but it's the same realm that I agreed with him that I could also point out, like the Mormon church is in trouble, and that's, like I said, you need the young, vibrant, true believing thing. But I would also to you know, have the ever generative new new versions of stuff. But that same thing should have some sort of new generative young apostle called of God, and who knows what, where out of nowhere, some young carpenter, some young Joseph Smith or something like that. It should not, like this managerial process. I talked in that podcast about how civilizations age, like via Spangler and all that sorts of stuff. Well, there's no bigger thing, or I don't know, example of it than how managerial the church has gotten. Just how they've all turned into what you just described, the old guys who go through a long line of proving themselves through this managerial process. And it's only going to be a 90-year-old for a while that keeps getting put in.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's only going to be very old men because it's done by seniority.
Anyway, Jared can't be here tonight because he's at a wedding. It really pisses me off when people are having weddings in the middle of us sitting here trying to decry the decline of national or world
Thursday
civilization.
afternoon. Who has a wedding on Thursday?
I know 2 people were doing the wedding stuff today, but he said he might pop on later. But I was gonna hope he was gonna be here because we are planning on talking about Destiny and Trent Horn. And here's a 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Guess who's going to debate Trent Horn?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Jacob Hansen's going to debate Trent Horn.
Wait, so who's Trent Horn?
Trent Horn's who debated Destiny. Did you watch that debate?
Which topic? I don't know if
it's on Whatever. Just this week, they had a great big debate about sex work.
And abortion earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
The abortion one was like 4 months ago. In fact, it was Risto who posted it, and I thought he was posting the abortion video that I'd already seen 4 months ago when he first posted it. I didn't know he was dropping a new one. And the new one was about sex work and polyamory. And it also dropped the day after Destiny announced that he was getting a divorce because his wife was Trent Horn, being the nice guy he is, he didn't even rub it in his nose in any way, shape, or form either.
He did maybe later in the debate.
He got into it. I only got about like an hour and a half through.
No, he did. There was a point where I think they were talking about consent, and I think, don't quote me on this, my memory's fuzzy, but I think Destiny said something like, well, you're religious, you're Catholic, you guys don't know anything about consent, like that's not, basically you're just religious, you don't know anything about it. And then I think
a profoundly stupid thing to say.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. And then Trent replied something about like, with referencing Destiny's marriage, like you don't know anything about like keeping a marriage or something, like I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd have that debate without being able to reference it. And just recently, like a couple weeks ago, I saw him debate Milo Yiannopoulos, which I hadn't seen Milo Yiannopoulos in for years. And Milo had gone like full like Christian nationalist, like not saying it how other doinks say Christian nationalist, like saying it like he's like, I'm gonna wear this Christian nationalist badge even more than the actual Christian nationalists wear it, if that makes any sense. But and he went after Destiny's open marriage again and again and again and again. But if they're talking about like polyamory, I don't know how it's not on the table to talk about. Kind of just kind of how Dillahunty was refusing to talk about things that, I mean, obviously talking about morality and all that sorts of stuff. He gets all upset because the debater brings up the trans issue. And like, how would that not be on the table to talk about? But let me I don't know if I'll pull up the exact thing. Somebody's laughing at the closed marriage. You got closed marriage and you got a polycelibate over there, and I'm just a bench. Like if I was an apostle, I probably could have brought back some polyamory, but I didn't. They passed me up again. Let's see. So. Anyway, Destiny, when it was announced that his wife was going to divorce him, she is now living with a new man who don't want no polyamory, and she is going to grant him that. So she's a new monogamist, I believe.
Oh,
And
interesting.
Destiny's claiming that she's being abused into that belief or whatever so far.
No, Destiny's being abused by his fraudulent wife, who just used polyamory as a cover to just change gears and avoid any moral implication by just saying, "Oh no, I was."
Yeah, I can't.
You can change, right? You don't have to be one thing once you decide.
Yeah, I can't help but think that polyamory is basically just announcing, I'm looking for something better, but I'll stick with you if I don't find it.
I think most women don't respond well to that message. That's not the Valentine's card you want.
Yeah.
Oh, dang it. I keep messing that up. That's kind of like back to that home math guy, the way he describes stuff. It's what I kind of say, like on some level, I do describe stuff like that, or like the home math guy, like, and I think a lot of guys do. You tend to just say what it is instead of playing along with some game that you don't know that you're playing along with. Like, oh, here, watch this one. This one's about. I'll just play it real quick. This one's about ick. Have you heard of the ick? The ick is what women get if you just give them the icks. It might mean like the end of your relationship. You gave them the ick.
Oh yeah.
All right, everyone. This is
this home math? I like this guy.
To help you understand and avoid the ick, as well as to diagnose women who are experiencing icks at an unsalvageable level. Type 1 icks are not masculine enough. That's when you try to do something and you don't do it very well. 5th degree type 1 icks are things you really should be able to do, like moving out on your own or hammering in a nail. If you can't do that, you really should expect this to happen. Each degree of ick is more severe, so the lower you go, the more it's time to find a new girlfriend. If she gets the ick because you're waiting in line, it's probably time to start asking questions. Type 2 icks are feminine. That's when you are affected by the environment. So again, up here at the 5th degree, if you're scared of a bug or something to that degree, that's really on you. But the lower down we go, the less understandable they get. These are all based on true stories. I heard a girl tell her boyfriend, "I can't believe you're scared of bears." You should be scared of bears. So that's the ick indicator. It should help you understand what the ick is and how to avoid it, and also when to avoid the ick and when to just get rid of the girl.
Yeah.
And that guy.
He saw something. He had, I forget the exact word. It was a more clever word, but it was like the ick dilemma. And I definitely lived the ick dilemma once in my life. And that was like when I saw Titanic in my teenage years. My teenage girlfriend both expected me to cry and would have gotten ick if I would have cried. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. So you have all these ick dilemmas. Like, what do I do in this ick dilemma?
See, I get in trouble for the opposite of the bear thing. We were in the Badlands in South Dakota, and there were some bison on the road, and I'm trying to sneak the car past the bison, and my wife's like, "No, go, turn around, go back." we eventually made it past, and they started chasing us. Everyone.
Do you have to say the Badlands of North Dakota? Like they don't have good lands there, do they?
Yeah, well, on the
you can just say
far
Dakota
western side, maybe.
Is that just the name of it, or is it just actually? That's just
Yeah.
the name of it.
It's the name.
Nice. You got chased by a bear?
By bison.
Bison.
Oh, by
Yeah,
bison.
they're mean. They're famously mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody just got gored by one pretty big.
That's something. Do you remember, like, because like in the 90s, I remember there was a bunch of news stories about how buffalo meat was going to be the new big thing, and like it just did not catch on. I think people didn't like it. I don't know.
I've got some in my fridge right now.
Yeah,
but only an accident because they were out of lean beef at the store. So bison.
Because isn't that? I mean, it's even leaner beef, isn't it? I would think for you that bison isn't bison for your, because I mean, considering that you treat food like medicine, and its characteristics don't really matter to you so much. I would think that bison. I mean, it's probably expensive. That's the other thing.
It's expensive, and I don't love the flavor of it. But
Yeah, see, it never caught on. Then there's this
It's
thing
got a
called
weird flavor.
Beefalo. There's one place in town. There's like down in South Jordan. There's like a burger and shake shack that their whole thing is that they do beefalo. But also, I think like the owners also own a ranch that breeds these beefalo, and it is just a hybrid of cows and bison.
huh?
But yeah, I don't know.
That marriage's not going to last. Cow and bison.
Yeah, I guess so. Because the other one is the thing I remember around the same time, ostriches, and I remember they even talked about there were people like in West Jordan who were breeding ostriches for eggs and meat, and that was supposed to be the big thing, but that never caught on. Anyway, sorry, this is just a dumb diversion.
No, those diversions are always good. We're here to do food diversions for sure. I'm saying that for real. I'm not joking. Let's see. I was gonna pull up. When I saw Rollo Tomasi, Rollo Tomasi was loving that Destiny had this happen because Destiny and Brittany Venti, man, this is already inside baseball for people who don't follow YouTubers stuff.
Like I barely know. Most of these are just names. I don't follow any of them.
Rollo Tomasi is the great big red pill guy, but Destiny, he and I'll pull the thing up because he's covering it. But Destiny and Brittany Venti trolled him just like a few months ago, saying that they had like all these pictures of Brittany. Like what's happening with Destiny right now, they kind of gave a story like that about Brittany Venti and they leaked it. Oh, about Lauren Southern.
Oh,
and
yeah.
her cheating and having an affair with Tim Pool, and they leaked it to Rollo Tomasi. And then it turned out to be a fake leak that they all did to Rollo Tomasi. So then, of course, now Rollo Tomasi is all scared about this one being like another thing to fake him out again. But Rollo Tomasi is kind of like the godfather of like red pilly stuff. But they're pretty sure that this one's just real. Where is it? But this is all just happening like the day before he goes and debates Trent Horn, who is Trent Horn's now going to debate Jacob about Catholicism versus Mormonism. I guess is going to be the
That
debate.
might be kind of interesting to see.
Jacob
Like
say the Book of Mormon.
They have a theme.
Yeah, I thought I saw that because originally, do you ever watch Pints with Aquinas?
Yeah, I do, but not religiously.
So originally I think they had some former Mormon guests on, and so then people started, tweeting at them, saying, "Hey, you're representing one side, why not have some active LDS on?" And so I think they were going to set up a debate with Robert Boylan. But he backed out of that debate. I think he had said that he thought it wasn't enough time or it was too broad of a scope. So for whatever reason, that one didn't work. And so then I guess Jacob's going to debate.
maybe he saw Jacob's debating and realizes it's not worth the effort.
So this, I guess part of some of this is just kind of catch and flip up on the who's who of this stuff. I know Risto knows about it because he's following it and posting it. But this is how many degrees of Kevin Bacon you are away from this too, because this guy right here, Jacob's supposed to interview or debate pretty soon, and here's him debating Destiny just last week. So,
and he's a good debater. Like,
yeah,
even if like I was debating on something that I knew I'm right about and I know he's wrong, like for sure, I would still expect to lose the debate just because of his debate.
Yeah, he's really good at scrambling up, like epistemology and that sort of stuff. He knows his philosophy and his that sort of stuff. But where I checked out here is, and I actually think Destiny got himself into a corner right here. Psychology of healthcare professionals. So like they're talking about, he's asking him, why can't a nurse give somebody sex work? And so then Destiny says, well, because that's different kind of work. Like the sex work has emotional. How did he say it exactly? Should we listen to some of it? Or
that's curious to see how they
component to sex.
get this volume up.
as somebody, so as a lawyer, we have rules on
Am I
how we're
understanding you
able to
correctly, though?
engage with people.
Hold
We're
on,
not
I just
allowed
wanna-
to
I wanna
accept
make
gifts,
sure-
for instance.
I want to
As-
make sure I'm understanding Destiny correctly and what you just said.
Hold on, let
Okay.
Lila go, then we'll have
Okay.
you come in. Go ahead.
And I do want to get back to the contraception thing, but you had said that there's an emotional, romantic connection to sex. That's I don't know if you used the word-
Oftentimes there can be, yes.
Yes. So that sounds like more than work.
It can be.
Yeah. So you're when you guys talk about
Wait,
sex
no, hold
work,
on.
like
I'm sorry,
if something,
I'm sorry, real quick. I reject that. What do you mean that sounds like more than work?
when you talk about sex work, like we can sell this commodity of sex, like
It's a service.
to lead, like it's a service. You're saying, well, but more emotions and psychological, romantic feelings get involved. Therefore, it doesn't belong in the professional setting of healthcare. That's what you're
Because
saying.
but like,
So how can you still say it's work and it's a professional?
do teachers
job?
work?
Yes,
Do they have emotional connections to children and parents?
and they should. That's a
okay,
healthy
so then
thing.
that argument doesn't make any sense. So what's the next one?
Well, are you saying that a nurse should not have an emotional connection at all to her patient?
Generally, they try to minimize it. Yes.
They should have empathy. That's actually required for nurses to have empathy.
They shouldn't have empathy. They should have compassion. They're two different things because empathy
They-
can compromise your
sure,
ability to
we
do
can
Are
other
you
use the word
saying a
compassion,
nurse
that's fine,
can't
but
understand the personal background, desires, hopes, and develop a friendly rapport with a patient?
You can
You're
have like
making a
a friendly.
distinction where there isn't
you
one.
can no. It's a key. It's a crucial distinction. Having a friendly rapport with somebody is different than becoming personally, emotionally invested in the outcome. You have to maintain an appropriate level of distance, whether you're a lawyer,
Right.
whether
And
you're
I
a medical
agree.
professional.
And sex crosses that line because of what sex just
But
intrinsically
many
is.
things cross that line. Like I just said, when you're a lawyer, you can't accept certain gifts. You can't get too close to your clients. They can't become like best friends to you. That's going to cause problems for you down.
So to me, this got really confusing. Like, I think they backed themselves into a corner entirely of saying that these different professions are supposed to entirely keep their emotions.
Yeah,
And,
no, that's like that's a just I mean just a stupid idea like that. Nobody can think like that.
And then he openly admits that that kind of has to be brought into the sex trade situation because those other people can't do the sex trade because it might bring their emotions into it. So, I mean, it all seemed like a catch-22 to me, and I already thought like that's why I didn't listen much longer after this. I mean, I listened to like first hour and a half, and I thought like Destiny just talked himself into a corner. Like I don't think that the others even needed. They kind of just Socrates him into it. I thought of him just kind of saying there, you know, anybody outside of the sex work profession should not be thought of or made to do it as part of their job because they could get emotions into it. But people inside the sex work, like it didn't make any sense.
Well, you have to add on other things besides consent. The idea that like consent is the only, you know, as long as the other party agrees to it, we're good. And I think in the last half of the debate, they really he goes into the animal world quite a bit. That was pretty.
Do you remember what some of the stuff he started saying? What's in it?
Well, I mean, he just starts talking about consent about sex with animals.
Classic.
A classic. Let's see. Like, how did he phrase it? We'll see if we can pull it up. Just animals. Just would he use the word animal?
Yeah,
or
I'm trying to think of the terms.
Critters.
Critters. Did you have critter sex? Did you get into that Jen Cougar stuff?
But I mean, he brings it up, and they're
they have it on the thing. Unhinged conversation on animals is what it's called.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Comparisons to other occupations, reminding the whole lawyer of the topic. What the heck? Like,
Yeah.
Is that her actual name? Lila on religion.
Is
In
there more morality?
general, I think
In
most
general,
most
yes.
I think most morality is going to be built around a reciprocation of consensual respect for other people.
Okay,
Yes.
so
How about consensual incest among adults?
If you want to do it, if you have a really hot sister, then go for it.
And there's no harm.
There you
Like, you're
go.
not reproducing.
I have a question related to that.
So incest is okay.
I got a question.
And bestiality is okay.
Ryan,
Point
speaking
earlier.
of
I didn't say
incest,
bestiality is okay. I don't think we should be doing
incest.
any of those harm to animals.
I got-
If an animal's
I got a
consenting, then bestiality is okay. But I don't think an animal.
I think I would rather live in a world.
Bestiality is
No,
okay.
if the
Bestiality
there's
is
no
okay.
way. There's
What?
no way for the animal to consent, just like there's no way for a child to consent. Trent was trying to be like, oh, but we do all these other experiments on
Yeah.
animals. We shouldn't do that. I think, and you said, oh, which one's worse?
Can-
It depends. It depends. Some of the experiments we do to animals are horrible.
Can
Like,
I-
we
can I
literally
play-
take out their ovaries. We do
Can
all
I
this
play
fucked
frisbee
up
with a
shit.
dog?
I would rather if I was, I think sometimes even having sex with animals is better than some of the shit we do to animals, like moving their ovaries around, killing them, literally killing them in order to
Does
get
a
So-
dog consent to being trained?
what?
Does a dog consent to being potty trained?
Wait a minute. Are you
Does
saying
your
that you're saying
four-year-old
that
consent?
sex with
We do
animals is
think-
not as
Wait,
bad
wait.
as killing them?
What do you mean?
Did you just say that killing them is worse?
I think killing animals is. It depends, right? It depends what you think.
Say that one more time.
What do you want me to say?
Just the way you said it.
Wait, like what?
Did you say killing animals is worse than?
No,
sex
I'm
with
saying
them?
sometimes the
I
experience
think wait, you can
we
bite the
do-
bullet. Yes, I think probably generally, yeah. Why? What's the next question? How could you possibly flip that? Do you disagree? Do you think that
So-
having sex with an animal is worse than
what-
killing
we're-
it?
Yes,
exploring-
yes, it is worse
For
because,
who? For
because
who?
animals
For
are
who?
non-rational beings that we can eat. There's nothing immoral about that. Sex is for human beings, and I'm sorry you guys just can't see
So you
that.
think the sex because we're not religious. So you think
It's
that
not
the
about
sex?
No, you're not
It's
sane.
about
You're an
being
insane
fair.
person.
So wait, who is the sex?
Oh, he's getting feisty with them there. Because Trent usually keeps his cool really well.
Wow.
Worse for versus the killing worse for? Are you just looking at the perspective of the human and not the animal at all, or?
Who is it? No, I'm talking about the act. You're reframing it as what causes more or less harm.
No,
I'm talking about
you
the
said
act.
sex for an animal is worse than killing the animal. I'm asking you
It's
worse
not
for
just
who?
for an animal. I think
I'm
it's
asking
worse
who
for
is
saying
worse.
the act of killing an animal the act of sex with an animal is morally worse than
I like this girl's face right here. I'm trying. Just have her sitting there like in that,
Who is that?
having some helmet, just putting this face on through.
Yeah. I wondered who that was.
the act of killing the animal.
Well,
So
killing
and the
animals is not
only thing that has
morally
any
wrong,
moral
apparently.
perspective in your eyes would be the human,
Yes, because not the only thing. There are ways to treat animals that are immoral, like animal torture.
like killing them.
Is it immoral? It can be immoral to kill an animal if you're doing it for a
In an-
cruel
or in
for
an
a
inhumane
cruel
way.
purpose or an inhumane way. But
Cruel
if-
in whose judgment?
No, let's say if you're stuck on a desert island and there's
Let's
a pig,
say that we're in
I would like to
California
I
and
would
we're
like to
eating a
finish.
cheeseburger. Oh my
If you're
God.
stuck on a desert island and I
We're
was
not
just
talking about stuck on a desert island. It's very obvious. Like you're killing an animal to eat it for burgers because it tastes good and it feels good.
no. Here's the example.
Okay.
If you're stuck on a desert island and you find a wild pig there and you kill it to eat, that's not morally wrong. Because you want to satisfy hunger. If you're on the island and it turns out you're just horny and you use the pig to satisfy that, yes, that is morally worse.
Is it morally
Because-
worse if you just hunt to kill an animal just for fun?
Is morally worse
Is
than
it,
what?
Then is it morally worse to kill an animal because you just want to hunt for fun than
Yeah, two people go into the
Yeah,
forest. One
so-
guy's hunting with a spear, one guy's hunting with his dick. Who's more immoral there? The guy that stabs the pig and kills it, or the guy that runs the animal and fucks it and runs
Is
it?
he going to kill?
Which
it
one
with
is more
his-
immoral?
Our-
Well, if it's
our
big enough,
position-
maybe.
our
But I'm asking. No,
position-
I want an answer. What's more unethical? The guy hunting with the spear, or the guy hunting with the dick?
Why
You think
is-
the guy that throws the spear? He's more ethical to kill the animal than leave
It is.
But that's almost like a question for that's come up this week in the middle of all this Hamas stuff and all that sorts of stuff. We see feminists defending certain Hamas actions of like, oh, it's just a little rape, and I'm not really exaggerating that. Like they're suddenly saying that, but at other times in their life they would have acted like
It's
the
a
rape
legacy
is
of
worse than a
colonialism, don't you know?
yeah. But they for sure, I'm more than positive there's many different times they would have said a rape is worse than a murder. I'm positive of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
The guy that
It
runs-
more
is
ethical.
much more gravely depraved to have sex with an animal than to kill it in a slightly more
Right, but
malicious
just
way.
rape is not
clarify
answering the
something.
question.
And the
Okay.
reason
Hold on,
for that,
hold on,
and the
hold on.
reason for that is what? The reason for
hold
that
on.
is that you want to eat the animal.
Our
Yeah.
position is that sex
That's
with
what
animals.
this view leads
Our
to.
position is that sex with animals is always wrong. My understanding of your position is that it's only
Well, it
potentially wrong
it
because
depends.
the animal can't consent.
it depends.
I asked you, does your dog consent when you train him to go to the bathroom?
Not
outside?
any more than your child consents to it.
Okay, so you're saying that you can train the dog doesn't consent to some things. The dog, you're saying the dog is a child, and that's why it's wrong to have sex with the dog.
I'm saying
That's your
I'm
position.
saying that if we're talking about consent the way we know it, informed consent, I don't think there's
Can-
any evidence to show that a dog can give you
All right.
informed consent.
Can
but
back to my other example. Can kids work for the police?
can kids work for the police? Kids can't work in general.
No. Can dogs work for the police?
Yes.
Okay, so it seems like it's a difference there. You can place them in a dangerous, life-threatening situation for the common good of society, and we see nothing immoral about that. What's wrong with sex with them?
They don't consent to work with the
Yeah, they can't consent to sex. They can't consent to work for the cops. But we see they can work for the cops. So why can't they do lesser harm?
What's the lesser harm?
Sex
having
with them.
sex because they could die in their jobs in the police force.
I mean, if there was some evidence out that dogs working for police officers and stuff was like really bad, like that's the thing with animals, it's really because we don't know what they're able, what they understand, what's good for them, what's not good for them. If there was evidence that working for police officers was really causing a lot of harm to dogs, then I would say that's bad. We shouldn't have
So
them.
you
work for
need a
police officers.
social, you need a scientific paper to tell you whether it's good for animals for people to have sex
I
with
just
them.
said it's not. I never said that it's good for. I
Let's
just
say
said that. I just said that there's a
hypothetically,
lot of fucked up shit. You said.
She said something earlier in this debate too that I was like, yeah, right. She claimed that the whole porn sex increase world, that there's study after study after study that shows that it's only increased the satisfaction and happiness and sex lives of women. And she didn't cite the articles or anything like that, but she just announced it. Like, and I just said, no,
Yeah.
no.
Just no.
said, oh, well, there's all this
Let's
fucked up
say-
shit we do to animals. We should do. Why not have sex with them? I'm saying we shouldn't do any of the fucked up shit to animals. That's my position. What's inconsistent about that?
No.
Let's
what-
say hypothetically, there's a small handful of dogs who die in the line of duty.
They're just like the most dangerous job is logging. Should humans not?
Like when I look at Destiny's face right here, and he's sitting here talking about consent of dogs being police dogs or raped, and he also just got the news that morning that his wife decided to be monogamous. Like part of me just kind of goes like, sitting right there in that moment, it's got to be like one of the worst moments ever. Just in my view, I don't know.
Not be able to
But the
No.
point of where we're the question here is, why is it okay to employ a dog without their consent? But to your
Okay, wait.
point, consent is important. when it
My
comes to
point
sex.
is that we shouldn't be doing
Why is-
a lot of
because that's
harm
work.
to animals.
Because
I
that's-
never said that having
but
sex with them is okay. I also
Jasmine,
said that testing on them
I'm
is
testing the
terrible.
limits of your moral belief. And what I'm saying is,
What is-
you're
does
saying it's
Destiny
okay for
answer
dogs
this?
to work.
What
for
is
the
your? What are
police,
you saying that I
provided-
disagree with? What are you saying that I
can
disagree
finish
with?
my
I just don't
question?
understand what you're
Can I
saying.
finish my question? You're saying that it's okay for a dog to work for the police, even if there's maybe a teeny bit of harm, but largely speaking, you want them to be harmed. But it's okay for a dog to work for the police, but it's not okay for a dog to do sex work for a human being.
Yeah.
Because they don't consent for sex work.
It's
They don't
not all
consent
about-
for work to the police. So why is it
It's not all
not
about
okay
what?
with sex work?
It's not all about what.
So you're saying that because we allow dogs to work
I'm
for the
asking
police,
you a question. And I'll give you
my
an answer.
position is this:
I'm
if
trying to
there's
understand your
any,
moral
if there is
compass.
anything action that we're doing, especially if it's not producing a good to society, because I think that
You
does have
think
to.
that sex work produces a tremendous
Okay,
good. You
just
keep
can't
talking about
stop
how
looking
good
at
it is.
Destiny.
Yeah.
So if,
I don't
let's
think-
say that there are people that enjoy sex with animals, and there are people who enjoy sex with animals.
Yes,
and your
but
argument so far is
we don't.
it's not okay.
We don't need. We
Let me just finish. It's not okay because the dog doesn't consent. The dog does not consent to work for the police. Why is it not okay for a dog to do sex work?
because I think
Man, that's got to be a meme. That needs to be a meme.
And Jared
That
was like
face.
putting up the face of like that dad whose kid like comes out of the. Then we had one. We had another one at some point. I gotta say, but I'm screenshotting that. Hold on.
That's
Yeah.
just too perfect.
think that when you're talking about working for the police, those dogs actually their lives are better a lot of times.
What if they're doing? What if they're
I
training?
think he just checked out.
If no, that's the thing. If I had any evidence that having sex with these dogs is something these dogs enjoyed and liked, I would say it's fine.
I don't know. Dogs seem to get pretty.
I would
They
say
seem to
it's
get
fine.
pretty humpy about
Yeah,
things. I
that's
don't
the thing.
know.
I care about the harm to the animal. That is my position.
What if the
My
dog,
position
what
is
if the
about
dog is
harm
able to
to the
orgasm?
animal. If the
With an adult.
yes, if
with
this
a
is my
human.
this is my thing. If we can show that there is a harm to the animal being done, then I would say it's bad. This is my position. If we can show that there is no harm,
Look who we just got on stream.
I came in at a good time.
You didn't
Yes,
you
sir,
didn't know that
Mormon
you'd be
wood.
coming in
This is-
on
When she's doing the Chank Uger, like, well, if you're just pleasuring, like, maybe you're just blowing the animal, then really who's getting hurt?
when you came in as well as we were just barely talking about you of like she's talking about animal sex and just look at Destiny's face through the whole entire thing.
He's just like,
This is
oh my
right
god.
after this is right after his wife dumped him for monogamy.
It's I love I love how boob she is too. The massive amount of cleavage. She's like, this is why porn is great for society.
Yeah. Oh man, his face though. Oh, because this whole thing we're watching them have this whole debate, and it's sex work and all that sorts of stuff. But really, what to me the whole time, all that was on my mind is Destiny's polyamory that everybody knew was gonna blow up. Look, I made my own dumb meme about it.
Look at those dead eyes. Holy hell.
Yeah, he's just like, what am I doing with my life, man? Look at my dumb meme that I made about it. The left, the center, the right. I called it that Destiny's open marriage wouldn't last. No. But that's just true of all of these things. Let's see how much more. We only got a little bit more of animal sex in Destiny's face dying.
That's just unbelievable stuff.
or that the dog is better off. If we could show that that was what's going on with bestiality,
So you
I
are
would say
okay with
it's fine.
bestiality as long as it appears that the animal.
I didn't say it appears. That's the problem.
as long as the animal orgasms.
I didn't say that either.
Well, what? Then how
I
do
don't
we-
think right now. That's why I said I don't
Does the
believe
dog-
it. I don't think we should do bestiality right now because we have no way of
But
knowing. I
does
don't
the
think
dog-
people orgasm
Someday. Someday we'll do
Like,
bestiality.
someday
Someday police officers. In
That's
general
not
terms, anything.
now.
We're looking at
It
what
seems that he does.
in general when we're looking at what is a dog like, what things can a dog have that makes it seem like their life is better. And if there was any way to show that you can talk to them all the time and they're enjoying it and it's making their lives better, I would say go for
It
it.
doesn't have
So-
to. Well, it doesn't have to be penetrative. Bestiality. We understand the immorality of it. Even things of when the dog aroused.
I also think it's funny to like imagine like dog sex debate and then off the debate Jacob Hansen.
No, so it's pretty actually easy to tell when a dog likes something that is happening to it, like,
Yeah.
and it's actually pretty easy to tell that any animal likes it when its dick is being sucked. So, like, if she needs some like scientific method, like, so we hook a computer up to this dog's brain, and it can be like, I am enjoying this dog blowjob, and then that'd be fine. But I can't believe how often this happens to where like all of the like conservative boomer type arguments against gay marriage that we heard are like just they're unfolding before our eyes. What's next? Are you gonna marry a dog? We're like, no, they're not gonna try to marry dogs. Quit being a dork. And they're like, I'm just saying, if we could figure out that the dog consented to it, then I don't see why we couldn't blow dogs.
Do you remember that bit in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where they solve the moral dilemma of eating animals but just breeding animals that want to be eaten? And there's like this whole scene where like you go to the restaurant and the cows can talk and they come to your table and they're like, how do you want to how would you like me today? I'm ready. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life.
Oh my god.
Everything about me just lives to be food for you.
Oh, how that one's got a little bit more. We got to get
Houses
to
versus
the
genitals, things like
animals.
that. And I'm not pulling this out of thin air. Like I said earlier, Peter Singer, a famous philosopher, was sharing this and defending it on his Twitter. He's a world famous philosopher. This is not, and when you search for this stuff, you find it everywhere.
Yeah.
People might say, "Oh, it's."
This is the same stuff that people always bring up about Jane Cougar because Jane had this whole discussion about it, like, "Oh, I think it's fine to have sex with the animals," and now everybody brings it up on him.
He said, as long as you're pleasuring the animal. Like, seriously, that was his whole argument. Is as long as that's why I was saying, like, blowing a dog is fine, but putting your dick in a dog isn't fine.
Well, the thing, like, I mean, I remember one of the ladies said earlier something that is incorrect because she talked about how like children can't consent to sex. Where it's like, well, okay, no, legally they can't. They're perfectly capable of doing it. It's a legal issue.
That was
as
Foucault's
they
argument,
can't, right?
in the affidavit.
And because that thing is like, whereas like dogs literally can't, like they literally for really can't.
Did you
but,
see that stuff where that
17-year-olds are capable of consenting to sex?
Did you see that stuff where that dolphin training lady admitted to getting off the dolphins and not for herself but for the
that was
dolphins.
on NPR in the distant past.
And she said they really wanted it. Yeah.
That's where like
I was doing them a favor.
it's a shallow moral framework to just say as long as there's consent and after thinking about it for 3 seconds we can't see any harm, we're good to go. Let's just go for it. That's
the heart of all this. The heart of all of this is from that left cause harm consent world. Is consent a good enough thing for all measurements of all morality? And it's just so easy to pick it apart in a Socrates way and make it fall apart real quick.
I mean, you could get somebody to consent to letting you kill them. Like if they're
That happened.
I know. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, the guy went and Flip said there's this species that wants to be eaten. This guy it was advertised over the internet. The guy said, I want to eat somebody. And somebody said, yes, I want to be eaten. The man went to his house and let him eat his genitals.
The German guy, you're talking about the German case?
Yeah. And I mean,
well, they consented. I don't know what else we can do here. It's all about it's the only thing. When consent is the only measurement of morality, this is what you get. You get like, well, okay, we need to get on this horse talking machine so the horses can tell us when we can fuck them.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't know how that lady tried to argue that Flipper was down, but she argued it. I remember she argued it. Like, Flipper wanted this.
Well, we probably did. That's like, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course they can't consent, but like, of course it was fine with it happening. I'm sure.
Like, what if you just let your dog hump your leg? And like,
well, but
like you even put your like your dog started, and you're like, oh, all right, finish up.
You can't consent to humping my leg.
Then I think there are some people who do have to do that in certain types of animal husbandry, don't they?
Oh yeah.
You
You gotta like jerk off horses sometimes for.
Well, you could use the modern tools. I think Trent talks about maybe in this debate, like electrostimulation for
For
ejaculation.
the prostate, yeah.
The technology got us out of the sin.
we don't have to double hand a horse cock.
I mean, that's one of the things we should be thinking about with technology. Like, how could we like get past all like the Jewish Sabbath laws with technology? How could we get past all the Mormon? Like, we should be thinking of technology in that way. Like,
Yeah,
like
no,
sin.
like Orthodox Jews.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing where it's like, I was watching this lady, like YouTube algorithm suggested it to me, obviously because it was about food, and it's like this Orthodox Jewish lady who just shows how she prepares for Sabbath and all this stuff. And I watched a few of her videos, and I remember being really confused because I'm like, wait a second, I thought married Jewish women were supposed to cover their hair, but this lady has really great hair. And then I saw one of her videos was my wigs. And then it turns out that like in Orthodox Judaism, like God said women can't show their hair. Doesn't say anything about ultra realistic wigs.
Yeah. That get
So
really
there you go.
expensive and really detailed and really.
That's like when my grandparents, like from Tennessee, lived with us for a while when I was in high school, and my parents, they didn't want to buy stuff on Sunday, so they would always send my non-Mormon grandfather to Walmart. They'd be like, "Yeah, he can do it." And I'm like, "What do you look? This probably isn't a big deal to go to Walmart on a Sunday, but we think it is." And if we think it is, we're just like, hey, can you commit the sin for us?
Send the
There's a
Gentile out.
name. I'm looking it up right now. There's a Yiddish word for a Shabbat Goy. Maybe it's a Shabbat Goy. But there's like various like rabbinic traditions. Normally it's frowned upon, but there's like a whole thing within, like, you know how Mormons have is Coca-Cola against the word of wisdom? Jews have, is it okay to ask a Goy to flip a light switch on the Sabbath? Like,
yeah, I've heard of that. Some of them actually employ some to do it, or certain things like that.
Like, that's the whole thing. Like, there are people who like, it's salaried. And, like, there's different like rabbinic things where they say like, well, look, if you need to, it's okay to ask somebody, but like if you plan for it, like, no, you need to plan to observe the Sabbath and not plan to have a goy work around for you. Yeah.
And on,
what are
on
some
the
things
seventh
where
day, God employed Gentiles to finish it up.
Yeah.
What are some things Mormons could employ people like we? Jared and I were, we were letting Jacob Hansen employ us to be mean to John DeLynn.
Yeah, so we told him we can sin for him and not be like Jesus.
Oh yeah.
No, we had. I remember once I like my, and I don't know if this is a true story because I heard it from a couple other people, but my branch mission president when I was in, or my branch mission leader in Yankton, South Dakota, while I was waiting for my visa, he told us that they used to have sister missionaries, and they didn't have gas on a Sunday, and they had to go to some faraway town, and they didn't want to buy gas, so when they ran out of gas, they dumped water in the tank and prayed that it would become gasoline. And I remember I told this to some people, and I got to that's the punchline. The punchline is just like, yeah, and then they prayed that it would turn into gas.
You know what's funny is
people is listening to me and they don't laugh. They're like waiting for me to finish the story, and they're like, and did it? And I was like, what? No, it fucking didn't. Like, they're like, God could do that. And I was like, yeah, he could, but this is the parable of the virgins, you retard. It's not gonna just be like, oh yeah, you weren't prepared. Let me just fill your tank up for you magically.
Here's the real punchline of that story is because like the prayer does work. It's just that in that case, a mechanic prayed that somebody would put water in their gas tank and do an easy job because he needed a quick paycheck.
We're short on work, and I've got this engine over here.
So God inspired some doinks to destroy their engine.
I've got this dumb engine I got online that nobody's ever going to need, and I'm in dire straits. One of the things talking about that makes me think of the way things have changed around Salt Lake. When I was young, most stuff was closed on Sunday. Would you say that was pretty true around here still, Flip? I bet
Oh
you
yeah,
was true in
it's
Idaho.
more. You know, it's funny. Like I still remember. Do you remember what it was like in like the decade, like 5 to 10 years before the 2008 financial collapse? Because remember before that, like most grocery stores in town were 24/7, and a lot of businesses were 24/7. Like there were some McDonald's and Burger Kings and stuff that were all night. A lot of
Are you
Taco
saying
Bells were all night.
pre-COVID or pre?
No, pre 2009. Like I'm talking about
No,
a ways
really?
back. Like
Well,
because I
in
don't know if
those-
you remember that. Because like
I was
in
in
the
Vegas the last few years before, but
oh, that's
I
right.
kind of remember. But Vegas was totally
But yeah.
24/7. But I don't know if that
Oh,
was,
because like
you know,
because
called the
I
city
remember
of North Beach.
that's a change that never thought like things never totally recovered. It's because like I remember up until then, like most, especially in town, most of the Smiths and Albertsons and whatnot were 24/7.
But
And
think
a
how
lot
quick
of
it changed to that, because in the 80s when we were young, nothing was open on Sunday.
yeah, no, that's for sure. It's definitely
like,
less
what,
so now. I don't know.
15, 20 years.
But I mean, I think a lot of it obviously is just economics because, like, yeah, before the financial collapse, when you know there's lots of money flowing around, I guess it made sense to be open all night. But like, they've never really recovered. Oh, but I thought of a job that we can do for Mormons, that I can do for Mormons,
What's that?
which is that when they want to do the fancy cooking, and the recipe says they only need a cup of Burgundy, I'll finish that bottle so it doesn't go to waste. You
There you
can.
go. You're yeah. That sounds like a
Yeah.
little bit like some sort of like Flintstone dinosaur job.
Yeah, you exist for the one purpose.
You got to drink
It's
the rest of the alcohol.
living.
Yeah, you got to say some sort of quip after you drink it, like I'm a lush. Or something
Well,
like that.
I've done that in my family because the church I grew up in, it was no alcohol also. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
When did
How did
God
your
tell them
family-
not to do it? Because we got a date and stamp
But-
on ours, but
But does your family like view it as super taboo as our families might? Like I can't bring alcohol around my family. Like
Yeah.
I'm not Mormon here, but I'm gonna bring some alcohol today. Like I can't do that.
I don't, like, out of respect for my parents, you know, it was pretty taboo. Like
yeah.
we had a temperance club when I was growing up as part of
Oh,
our
wow.
group.
Fun.
Say
Yeah.
the name of the division again. What is it?
It's Nazarene. It's
Nazarene.
it's kind of in the Wesleyan or Methodist kind of branch off of.
Nazarene Bible College. Is that your guys? The Church of the Nazarene. Is that the name?
Yeah.
Church of the Nazarene.
Yeah,
Wesleyan Holiness Movement.
Yep.
Oh yeah, see, they believed in holiness, unlike everybody else. They put it in their name.
alcohol. Yep, that's right. No alcohol is
Oh.
holiness.
Yeah. So one of the
Interesting.
things that, I mean, also talking about Sundays and stuff like that, is I also think it's one of the weird changes over just 30 years that have happened here. Is also when we were young, if something was open on Sundays, like you couldn't go shopping on Sundays if you were a Mormon, because if you did, there was high chance you might run into somebody and they'd see you and you'd see them,
Yeah.
and you can't do it. And now I don't know like what happened around here. Maybe stuff just blew up and blew out, but I can't even like imagine running into anybody anymore. Like it hardly happens, you know. It just
I
seems
wonder
like
'cause, like,
way.
I mean, I don't know, because I've lived downtown for so long and I've been out of the church for so long that, like, you know, I just don't see that many Mormons. Like, I'm trying to think of like the last time I had a Mormon coworker. You know, like it's like.
But I'm also
where I
trying
am-
to imagine like, so I still know all the people I went towards and stuff, and I'll go to, you know, Smiths or something on a Sunday. But I've tried to imagine the last time I ran into some ward person that I knew just in a grocery store, and like that seemed to happen way more when we were young than it does now, and that might just be more options, more times stuff's open, more. But I think it's like I'm getting at that it seems to be part of the city area blowing out too. It's part of the global homo, man.
But yeah, I mean, because like with Kwaku talking about how, like, you know, caffeine and blowjobs apparently are totally okay.
Yeah,
now.
coffee.
Like
You can go to
shopping
the
on
temple.
Sunday. Is that
Coffee
even that
temple
big a deal?
visits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just see what Rolo says on it here. We already talked a bit about like how he's a little distrusting, although he believes it because he got played by these guys just a few months ago.
Yeah.
But
we're trying to figure out how to do marriage in the 21st century. And it doesn't gel with an old order 20th century model or 20th century spirituality or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be Christianity. It's also, you could be Muslim too, right? Although you can have 4 wives in Islam. But the idea of an open marriage as something that is sustainable, that can keep going, like you can be, we're going to be in an open marriage when we're 90. No, you're not. I can tell you emphatically, no, you are not.
do you think anybody's gonna beat that? Like if people are sitting here listening to us, like, no, we're gonna beat that. Like nobody's around who was 30 or 40, 60 years ago who was doing that. So we got like 0 test case, just as like Destiny or Evolve could say to us, show me the studies that they don't make it to 90.
Well,
right
the
now.
problem is that the more open it becomes, the less of a marriage it is, just definitionally, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because you can like, I don't know, maybe if you open it up a tiny bit and say like, well, we're like, you do like those Mormons in the McMansions tried to do, where you say, well, we're just gonna we can kiss other people if with consent, of course, because consent is important. Maybe you could get away with that for a while, but I feel like it's always going to push into more things, which it did for them. And you're like, well, okay, maybe if we just, bang one other person or whatever. But the thing is, the more and more open it gets to where you're like Destiny, and he wasn't married. The way he describes it, he was having sex with whoever he wanted, and she was having sex with whoever she wanted. And you can say like, oh yeah, but like she has to run it by me first. Like, well, clearly not, because she stopped liking to run it by you, and then just ran away with this head case dude that threatened suicide.
Yeah, I think I'd go one step further though, that it's not just like getting redefined. Like I bet you most 30, 40-year-olds who are doing it today, like they're not even going to be friends at 90.
Oh no.
In most cases. I mean, I guess we got to wait for the studies.
Well,
wait for the studies, just
yeah,
like we got to wait for the studies on the kids going through transition.
Even if you could, it's like the exception that proves the rule, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not about just getting like 2% of, marriages to make it to 90 years old and open marriage. It's how does that work as if we do it societally?
Yeah, I can't picture, but I mean, prove me wrong. I guess all this stuff we're gonna get to find out. That's one of the things that Peterson always said about like the kids and the hormones and all that is like in 10, 15 years, we're gonna not have to debate this anymore because all this data is gonna be in, but you should be able to see beforehand that this is going to hurt people. But it'll happen. In this situation too, it's like I don't feel like we need the studies, but we're gonna get the studies,
I've been saying that so often lately. That's the thing I've been shrieking more than anything else. I don't need a study, okay? Like, I don't need a study to know that if my wife and I started opening up our marriage, that it would fuck me up. It feels just so obvious.
Well, and that's just not how women are wired. I know it's like unfashionable to say that these days, but I mean, open marriages are it's a male fantasy, and then you have a society with a bunch of young girls who didn't have a good father figure, and now they're just looking for approval from the male world, and they're like, I can just be like sex maniac, and all the guys like me for that. That's
it's more of a male fantasy, but tragically enough, it works out better for women. Like you can go onto Reddit, and it's like a constant stream of dudes saying, "Okay, I pestered my wife into opening our marriage because I really wanted to have sex with a bunch of women. We opened it. I can't get laid. She's banging other dudes in my bedroom every night while I watch the kids and cry, and now she doesn't want to stop." You're like, yeah, idiot. How did you think that this was going to work out? You know how easy it is for a woman to have sex with, because she's trying to have sex with a man, which is the easiest thing in the world. I could go do it right now if I were so inclined.
But I also think though that that's not necessarily the ego boost for women that it is for men. That's actually taking a point right back.
No, I don't think it's good for them. I think it messes them up.
I don't
I'm just
mean even good for them. I mean like they don't get as impressed with themselves about that as we would get impressed with ourselves about it.
because they know it's easy. They know it. Like
Yeah.
if my friend told me like tomorrow, he's like, dude, I've had 8 different sexual partners in the last 2 days. I'd be like, holy shit, that's awesome. And then if he said they were men, I'd be like, oh, well, that's not hard, dude. Like, congratulations, you fucked the people that'll fuck anything that breathes.
Well, the old joke is like a key that opens many doors is a good key, and a door that gets opened by many keys is a bad door. Here.
And they hate that analogy.
You hate it?
No, they hate that analogy.
They hate that. But at the same time, too, I mean, I don't think, like Reese was talking about, like, wired. Like, I don't think you can think yourself. This is like so many things in this world. Like, you don't get to think yourself out of it. Like, they can't think themselves into being impressed with their body count. You know, just like just like you can't get an incel to be impressed with, like, well, my virginity's of high value. You know, you can't talk yourself into it. You wish you could. We can have feminists yell at you that you can talk yourself into believing stuff, but it doesn't work like that.
Well, and that goes against another, like, you know, consent and then wiring. Those are our two big, like, moral guiding principles, you know. Well, I'm wired to like I ate Taco Bell for lunch today. That's terrible for me. You know, I have to go against that wiring. It's bad.
Yeah. I know of a few different women. I've told you guys before, I think just in the DMs and stuff like that. But they've talked to me directly about being pressured into ENM. What's that stand for again? Ethically non-monogamous.
Oh yeah.
And they go on all these like dating apps and get pressured in that sort of stuff. But I know one who was married and divorced to the same guy who was cheating on her. And then at some point she got talked into it. Wait, there's this ENM thing that makes it all okay. And there's a portion of me that just goes, no, like you've developed a cope, maybe by going to a therapist who talked you into this cope. But I know you don't love this or like this or are now on board after 10 years of very heart-wrenching battles, back and forth, divorces, getting back together, divorces type stuff. And then I know a couple gals who on dating apps and all that stuff, they're just they go out with a guy and on the first or second date, they'll say, hey, by the way, I'm into ENM. Are you into ENM? And like it's everywhere. Like they hear it again and again. And you're like, what? When did this happen? Because they're all my age and just kind of like back on the dating market. You know? But those are the types. They're also the types who are like, I'm a spiritual healer. I'm a spiritual this or that. And I even kind of like started because this one gal really liked the guy and was upset that he brought up the ENM stuff. And I even kind of started warning her, like, you know, all of your talky therapy stuff that you're into. I've seen it. I'm trying to give you a forehead warning, but I've seen women who go into that and get enough different, like, enlightened whatever phrases of rethinking, reimagining, and talk themselves into something that I know that their guts didn't really want.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's your wiring, your gut. You know, you know when something's not going to work out. You don't need a bunch of studies to know that it's not going to work out and that it goes against probably what you are, but you're pushing yourself to do it. I always use the example in A Brave New World of Lenina, the female protagonist, who it's like reverse slut shaming that happens in that book, where like you're not supposed to date the same guy 2 times in a row and you're supposed to just have sex freely anytime you can. And she wants to go on another date with this guy, and her friend is like saying, wait, you just went on a date with him. You're going to go on a date with the same guy twice in a row? And I'm not falling in love. I'm going to have a lot of sex over the weekend. You know, like it's clearly going against the way that the character was wired. And she's having to fight her own gut in order to do what this weird, fucked up society is telling her to do.
Yeah. See, Charles, I haven't been reading these things. I've been looking on this other thing, but more reason to hate being LDS. Charles says my local Exmo group had an outbreak of polyamory for a few years. Every single one of these polypods have collapsed, and none of them preach about it anymore or shout. They used to shout down anyone who questioned the long-term viability. It's hard to talk about this stuff because it's a little bit a tell and tell out of school, but I'm going to tell them. I think I brought up before. My older brother works with a bunch of choir people who were BYU high-level choir people, and they were all BYU high-level choir people. Like if this were 1980 something, they'd all be in line or already knocking on the door of being in the Tabernacle Choir, right? But these groups that are now coming out of BYU, they have, first off, they have like a lot of Skittles in there. They have like a lot of now gay people who are in it. And then they decided, well, we'll go ahead and just make a secular choir ourselves that we go around singing, and that is of the same level. And in fact, they'll even point to, this is where I got in a bit of a fight with Jim Bennett about, like, they argue that they're more trained than they even get for the Tabernacle Choir nowadays. Because like somewhere a while back, the Tabernacle Choir started saying, we're going to go with people who are spiritually worthy over people who have certain talents and skills, like this top world-class talent level and skills. And some people started pointing to that's the moment that started going down. I have a hunch, and I believe that started happening because the guy who gave me some voice lessons growing up, who was a Tabernacle Choir guy, as soon as he left the choir, he came out. And my guess is in that choir over years, some stuff got not so temple recommending, if that makes sense. And then they said, well, we're having these things fly around the world and all these different people from different marriages, or where I'm sure stuff went down. That's all there is to say it. And I can't say for sure, but now they increased their restrictions about that. But now my older brother and his choir, they start having these things. He said, next thing you know, he's calling me up for HR advice because this new choir has all sorts of people hitting on each other and open marriaging on each other and talking to each other and all this sorts of stuff. And these are the people who are weeded out of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir now, but the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is not as artistically good as they used to be.
And that pissed off good old Jim Bennett.
Yeah, that pissed. Well, yeah, me saying that this weren't as tight as they used to be, but I wasn't telling tales out of school there either, because I was hearing that from my older brother and these guys who are psycho good singers and way into choir in that sort of way, and it's their opinion that I was regurgitating that Jim Bennett yelled at me about. But I was putting two and two together that the choir. I knew a girl a few years back who said she was going to that choir, and they said all they cared now is that you had the Spirit. And she was going to go try out for that thing. And I'm like, you're trying out. I've known you for a long time. I've never heard you sing a peep. Yeah, but I'm just trying out because I've got the Spirit. I don't even know if she sings well or not, And but she had heard that it was easier to get in just if you had the Spirit now, because they cared more if you had the Spirit than all these skills. And then I heard all that stuff happening with my older brother's choir and how it got all polyamorous and crazy and all that sort of stuff. And I'm putting a hunch and a theory and a two and two thing together in the back of my head that all the polyamory world, just like Charles Wagner saying about like his groups and all that stuff, I'm guessing it got all into that, like everywhere has gotten all into that.
Well, I'd rather go listen to the polyamorous choir, but I'd rather be in the terrible choir. I'd rather be in the terrible choir.
They do probably sing better if they can stay in there without getting Me Too'd, because my brother literally had to kick people out of this non-profit choir for Me Too stuff. And
how do you do that? Like, how do you even
HR?
I mean, how do you even?
They were asking me if they had a problem HR wise. Like, they were asking me if they had some sort of legal worry to do it or not.
No, I get it, but what I'm saying is, how do you even have a polyamorous choir? Like a choir that you're clearly all going to be very left-leaning, all up for Me Too and cancel culture and shit like that, and you're going to have a bunch of horny male feminists trying to get in the plans of everybody. Like, how does that's got to be the biggest clusterfuck in the world.
Yeah. Yep. There's a that ex-Mormon group. You know how like that ex-Mormon Facebook group started making those. I showed you guys once. Like they suddenly made all these group chats from the ex-Mormon group.
Oh
And
yeah.
one of them was a polyamorous one, and I haven't deleted them yet, just because I'm kind of watching what's going on them, but I'm not really. But the polyamorous one, that's straight dudes in there, man. Like, hey, anybody here? Anybody here?
I'm seeing if there's like 2 bisexual women who want to ride me at the same time. You know, just a polyamorous guy.
Just to go against
I'm-
patriarchy, man.
I'm one of those weird guys that wants to fuck 6 women at once.
I'm weird that way.
I'm queer.
I'm a rando.
I'm
I'm a
queer.
rando. So
Hey, baby, I'm queer. How queer are you?
you think
You're queer, right? Are you queer enough to get on this dick right now?
So here's the question: is Destiny gonna ride out his polyamorous beliefs, or is he gonna switch it up a bit?
He'll write it out.
You think so?
I think he'll switch. Give him enough years, he'll switch it up.
I think
Maybe
I
in
think
enough
he's riding
years.
it out. I think he's probably just going to take it easy for a while.
Yeah, I know. He's
No.
What
I
at
don't-
the end of the debate? At the end of the debate, he said he's going out on a date. So
Well, that's one of the things that people were saying, is that he's never had like very many struggles with women because he's a high paid YouTuber. So he is
Yeah.
kind of like one of those high percentage guys who he doesn't even have to be good looking or whatever, but he's got enough attention that he does get a certain amount of women who.
You remember that classic bit from when Norm Macdonald was on The View? I don't even remember what he's saying, misogynist stuff. And Barbara Walters, or one of the dumb harpies on that show, says something like, "Well, how do you do with the ladies?" He goes like, "Well, I have a lot of money." And it's like, and that's the answer. It's like,
Yeah.
there you go.
The once again,
It's
home
really-
ass
it's-
into it
it's-
all the time.
It's funny because then you get these people that genuinely don't understand that men and women are actually wired differently, kind of like we were talking about, because like you see all these high success ugly men getting like all the women they want, and then you'll see like Leslie Jones tweeting out something like, "Why can't I find a man?" And like she's like, "I make all this money and I'm famous. Why can't
Yeah,
I
they don't
find a
get
man?"
the,
I'm like,
like-
I don't know what to tell you, lady. How do you not know this about men? How has
Yeah.
nobody told you that being rich and famous as a woman, if you look like Leslie Jones, it's not going to get you guys?
Well, it's not just her. It's also plenty of like different TikTokers, because you'll see people kind of collect it up. And some of them are even perfectly good looking women, but they've like, I worked on becoming a girl boss until I was 45. And now I've got $100 million and now I can't find a man. Oh, that's probably an overstatement of the amount of money, but they don't get that. It's like, that's not how the male sexual attraction works. That's you built yourself up like a man does for what attracts a woman.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like, because frankly, like a lot of guys are just going to be worried they're going to be hypergamied away before long. You know,
Oh yeah.
like yeah, that's why I don't date you, because like you're not going to be into this very long. You make more money than me, a lot. So there you go.
Yeah. Just earlier, Jonathan posted one of the home math things about why the sexual revolution was a failure. I don't know if you should pull that one up, but I've got some other ones, but I can't just do straight home math stuff all night. I'll do one more real quick. Present sharing, because then we got to get into the discussion, which this kind of goes with it too. Is Destiny going to put his goofy ideas away? Is all the woke going to be put away? There's been a long debate that's supposed to be cleared up by 2025 between Academic Agent and Aaron McIntyre, and they have a large debate everybody talks about of, are they going to put the woke away, or is the woke here to stay? And stuff this week looked like I don't know what. It looks like they're just running into it, but then they did double down into some stuff.
Well, what was the prediction on South Park? Because Remember when PC Principal became a
Oh,
thing?
yeah, about 5 more years left.
Yeah, it's been about. I think they said 6 years, and it's been about 6 years since I came out,
Yeah.
right?
Is
Yeah,
it?
probably. Maybe
We'll
more
see.
than
Well,
that.
South Park's on the. They'll put the woke away prediction. Let's see what this lady says.
Whenever I hear about the male loneliness,
Come on, that is quiet. Oh, can you hear it? Can you guys hear it? I just can't hear it.
It's quiet.
something my therapist has said to me.
Oh, good. Therapy. That'll help this guy. You do want to help him, right?
Historically, women have always had to have endless empathy for men. In the 50s and the 40s, women would snap, and that's when they would get thrown into like an insane asylum.
So society was unfair to women 80 years ago, okay?
Since we're all collectively deciding to no longer be endlessly empathetic, we can maybe put all the men who complain about the loneliness epidemic in the insane asylums.
So first of all, it's not really a loneliness epidemic. It's an epidemic of what men do when they become terminally lonely. Second of all, the men from the 40s and 50s are not the ones lonelying themselves. They've been lonely for a while. When you say this to women, they usually say, yeah, but there are still some guys today who are not being very nice to women. And that's true, but they're typically not the same ones that are.
That's his picture thing of like what he's talking about, like those women of like who they can get and who the men can get, and like look down at like the 3, 2, and the 1. Like there's not any that they can get at all.
I also love this like genre of TikTok feminists where they talk about things that women are tired of that they themselves have never experienced. She's like, yeah, women were endlessly empathetic of men in the 50s, and now I'm tired of doing that. Like, you never did that. First off, that's not a thing. That's not a problem.
Talking about?
Even if it was, and it happened in the 50s, you never did it. That's like me saying, good, I'm tired of being drafted into wars. But I bet that would have sucked. But I've never been drafted into a war.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Are lonely. So really, there's very little overlap between guys from the 1940s and guys who have hurt you in your life and guys who are lonelying themselves at the fastest recorded rate. And I think that seems obvious, but some women seem not to care. So that would mean that these guys are guilty for what they did, or for what they did, or you just don't care about them.
I love that. Yeah. That was a little bit off subject though, but I mean, I pulled up his thing about like what guys and girls can get and the imbalance of that, like those line drawing things, or why the polyamory seems to work better for them than it does for the fellows. But
I'll bet this woman has complained about emotional labor as well.
oh yeah, I'm sure.
I love that term so much. It's just for people that don't actually contribute anything into the relationship to pretend that they do. They're like, he expects me to do all this emotional labor of, I don't know, remembering to take the trash out or something like that, or emotional labor of listening to his problems. Oh, you mean being in a relationship? You get angry at your lover when he comes to you and says, I had a tough day. Oh my God, I have to listen to this again.
Look at that Salt Lake Tribune
when people
headline.
talk about how civilization runs because of the sacrifices coal miners make, that was the feminist answer, is like, well, emotional labor. They're in the emotional coal mines. They get emotional black lung. Thousands of them die every year and emotional mine collapses. You know?
Look at this, the Salt Lake Tribune's headline. Great job, news, the Salt Lake News. They're talking about the women who got, we talked about them last week. They got asked, they got removed from the stands in California. And the Tribune has a headline. They want us for the work, but they don't want us to be visible. LDS women react to stand removal.
Why did they get kicked off of the stand?
They just were always up on the stand in California, and then they got some like area authority saw that and oh, they're not supposed to be on the stand, take them down. So it was just kind of like a
what was their calling?
Like Relief Society, like they had like the head of the Relief Society sitting up with the bishop, and they'd done it for like 10 years.
Oh,
and some area authority said,
not, I guess
they're not supposed.
I even thought about it. I don't know if I would like. If you would ask me from my memory from more than 20 years ago, like, are there women on the stand? I'd be like, yeah, there's got to be a couple. I guess not. I don't know.
I mean, there's like the
not in leadership position,
the organ player, the choir lady, or the chorister. I mean,
Yeah, I guess she had to
it's
sit
kinda
off.
not
She was supposed to
relevant.
hide herself. She's supposed to cover her head with the same doily they used to cover the sacrament.
Yeah, that brings up. I don't want to get in this now because I wanted to talk about the woking, putting the woke away, and the presidents of the colleges. But this, I just read this book called Occult Feminism this week, and the reason I thought of that right now is because last week, in that title it says they don't want us to be visible, and then we talked about that lady who is part of Bill Reel's channel, and I think it's called She Was Finally Seen, or She Was Invisible, or something like that. That's the name of the channel. And she was praying to Venus. And this book right here, I finished this book, I read it this week, called Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation. And it gets into also, Risto says women aren't wired that way, but you could also like look at these same sex cults and say that it probably wasn't women who were trying to push them into doing these sex cults, although they'd go along with it because they get put in a position of like power or something like that. But part of their power is they were supposed to be weird sex goddesses and stuff like that. And there are so many freaking groups, and the origins of the stuff are things that you wouldn't believe in. The just like always, it's just real. It was just there. It was just part of it. Then out of the burnt over district, the same thing that Mormonism comes out of, a bunch of other groups that were just sex cults, feminist sex cults came out of them. Like, have you heard of like the Oneida group?
Yeah, my dad, since I was a kid, told me about the Oneida Society.
Yeah,
It was basically just that there was like a free love cult.
Yeah,
that operated around the same time as the Joseph Smith and
came out of the burnt over district or the Brooks Farm, and they're completely polyamorous sex cults, like completely. There's another one called like the GBS group or something like that, and the Golden Dawn, the Hermetic people, and the Theosophical societies. Back to that whole thing that Kwaku said you should look at Mormonism as a Theosophical society. But I would say all of those other things became way more sex culty than
the whole Ayn Rand thing. Was it like because Ayn Rand preached free love?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was the other thing. Like I don't know. I just thought she was hypocritical about it because like
it was
her.
Then you had the Wiccan people, the Blavatsky, and the thing is too is like all of the people who were part of the Seneca Falls women's rights movement were all involved in one way or another in one sex cult or another, like openly, like writing about it.
So I don't think Ayn Rand was hypocritical about sex. I think she was just fucked up about it. Like she kind of just, all of her characters, they were only in love with the best character, and as soon as they found a better character, like a more ideal man, they just
hypergamy. It was like,
and then, she left him for the better man, and the guy that was left was like, I understand why you did this. He is more successful than me. She's like the least romantic person that's ever existed, and I think that's how she viewed her life.
I remember in Michael Shermer's book, he talked about how like, she was married to a guy. And she had all these rules about like, well, once you're in a marriage, you're in a contract or whatever. But then she was like, well, no, I'm going to actually have a sexual relationship with this other guy, but no one else is allowed to.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. She had a weird sex thing going on.
Well, it seems like these cults, it was either like sex for everyone, just all around, or like no sex at all. Like either.
Yeah, is one or the other.
Yeah, because some of the cults, I think they just died off because everyone was celibate in the cult.
Yeah, wasn't that the Shakers?
Yeah,
but it was the sex positive cults were just as childless because they'd be like they'd be pro-abortion. It was supposed to be a non-birthing. Like the only one that came out of the burnt over district that was like pro-family was the Mormon one. All the rest of them, they had like these really weird ideas around like detaching the feminine body from its reproductive, like all the way down into like the concepts of inverting purposefully Christianity and purposefully the family, the nuclear family. Not just like, hey, it's kind of accidentally this. No, they openly wrote and talked about trying to do that. And not some of it was they were sex cults, but they weren't supposed to the men weren't supposed to ejaculate. So that was a bit of the Oneida group. The men were supposed to teach the young girls how to have sex, but without ejaculating. And then the older women were supposed to teach the young men how to hold it in too. Like all sorts of stuff like that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean-
and most of the biggest names of like Seneca Falls and all that stuff were involved in these things, man. They 100% were.
Yeah, it's funny.
And they like wrote these like
conversely-
Luciferian books and wrote all these things like openly, like they wrote it in their books. They put it in their books. It's just like all this other stuff. And I can't regurgitate it all because that's a huge book, but it's all of them were into it 100%, all of them. And here,
It's
look
like
up this like Brook Farm.
in the 19th
A bunch of men end up
century,
going
there
there,
was-
and there's like the transcendentalism and all this sorts of stuff, and it all became like a sex cult. And then they got into the ideas of Charles Fourier. You remember Charles Fourier, that socialist who thought that once we bring about the socialist utopia, certain animals would decide to be our servants, and the oceans would turn to lemonade.
Bringing the
for real.
Flintstones back again.
Yeah, and he had like a crazy sex cult idea too, and this pushed over to the Fabians and the Hermetic cults of the Golden Dawn. And guess what that ended up pushing into? Alice Bailey, who is the person who came up with social emotional learning and is the person that they have like all that imagery and prayer stuff at the UN for still. It's like still 100% inside the UN, these wackadoo prayer circle cultish nutbags. And it's just real. Like it's not even like you can find it all on Wikipedia, but on top of that too, I've recommended. There's this guy Teal Deer. You guys remember Teal Deer? Teal
Yeah,
Deer
whatever
had a
happened to
really
him?
great YouTube channel, but he left it.
No.
But now he's all over Rumble, and he's going deep into this stuff too. And he's only pulling references from Oxford and Stanford. He's like he also looked at Rachel Wilson's book here, but she's got an Orthodox bent. But he said, well, I'm just going to pull it from all these other places too, just to show you that it's not just like this Orthodox lady talking about this sorts of stuff. Like I will pull it from real sources. All of this stuff was 100% real. You want to know what is crazy? Like the Vanderbilts, the Rothschilds, and the Rockefellers all got into this stuff like crazy. One of the ways that they got super wealthy and rich crazily is they said that they had these women who were trance speakers, trance, trance speakers, who could tell the future and do this sorts of stuff. So they were actually just like Wiccan whatever prostitutes who would go around saying that they were these trance speakers. But what actually happened, people believe, is that the different prostitutes knew each other, and that became their kind of like secret underground internet. They could talk to each other and do insider trading on. And some of the major amount of money that they made on stock market sudden drops, where they all changed their stuff and did stuff the other way, was they were transferring the information via their Wiccan trance speaker prostitutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're some of the ones that funded the Seneca, like they 100% funded the Seneca Falls stuff and all that stuff. Rand had an open affair with her younger protege, Nathan. Yeah, we read
Yeah,
up
that's
whole
the
entire
guy.
thing on that one. Yeah, that one got wild. But go listen to Occult Feminism, or go onto Rumble and listen to Teal Deer's channel.
Where did you find to listen to that? Did you use Subscription Town, or is it on
that one was this was like an actual book. I got this one off of Audible. But if you want, here I'll make a post of it. The Honey Badgers covered it just recently, and Teal Deer was on Honey Badgers, and gave a rundown of it. And then Teal Deer recommends his channel, where he says you can go to his thing and get into all the details of all the different ones. And Teal Deer's more rigorous about it. Even it's just he hasn't turned it into a book yet. But this same lady, she dug up a bunch of TikTok videos. I got to show you these TikTok videos of women who are Wiccan, who are turning their abortions into complete like rituals and seances. 100%.
literal blood sacrifice?
Yeah, for real. And not just one. And they get like millions of views. Honey Badger Radio. I'll get off this tangent because then we'll just get into the DEI stuff. Are they going to put the DEI away?
Well, maybe this stuff here is the replacement for the woke stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what Boghossian claimed was going to start happening. He said it was either going to be this stuff or aliens. But I think this stuff has kind of always been the second thing for people to go to when they think they've lost their traditionalist religion. And let's see, I'm going to try to Honey Badger Radio with Tilde. Here it is. Okay. Sorry, it's taking me. Share this tab instead. So this is the episode. You can't see Tilde there. This is Tilde. I mean, it goes by too long. Didn't read, and that's because he reads stuff and breaks it down for you. That's Tilde, and he's on Rumble. But this is a 3-hour breakdown of that book, so you can skip the whole entire book too. Really. There's more names because Rachel Wilson kind of just has more of like a bit of rigorous, and then this person, and then this person, and then this person, and then this person. But some of it just gets to be so much that you're like, I could never even regurgitate this. Like, come on. But a lot of it's covered here in this stream. Just shared it in the thing, and I'll send it directly over to Flip. So if you want to skip the book, but then Tilder's channel gets into just a ton of them. Anyway, that's occult feminism, and part of all that is sex magic. You heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers blood sugar sex magic. They call it the sex magic.
L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were into that stuff.
That's the other thing that you need to get into is all this stuff does lead into how the Theosophical Society, the same one we were talking about, who led to Wizard of Oz and all that sorts of deal, led to Scientology. Like the Scientology, Aleister Crowley, all those guys come out of the same movement. And the Fabian Socialists also come out of the same movements. Those people who Kubrick was talking crap on, Arthur C. Clarke and George Bernard Shaw and all those guys got becoming star children and all that sorts of deal. And it was a bummer to me to find out William Butler Yeats is way into it too, and because I like him as a poet. But yeah, get into it because all that stuff did lead to L. Ron Hubbard 100%, and it did get into social emotional learning, and did get into our United Nations, and did get into. I mean, it's in everything, and it's just there. It's just there and real, and not real that it's like a real actual thing. Because one of the things that Dan McClellan always gets into is like Moloch's not really a god, Moloch's not really a devil, that sort of deal. Like, okay, Dan, but these bozos say he was. You know, like, it's maybe you're reading the Bible right for us, but the people who are talking about people sacrificing kids to Moloch, that's you doing like Republicans pounce a little bit, because it's not them who are doing weird rituals to Moloch for whatever, you know. It's somebody else. It's somebody else's mistake that Moloch's not some devil god, not the people saying stop sacrificing your babies to Moloch, because there's people who are coming up with reasons to sacrifice their babies to Moloch.
Well, it's almost like there's like it just like keeps replaying itself, you know. Like from the religious framework, it's very much like these kind of like two parties battling each other over thousands of years. And it's
totally. I mean, to me, like it all just seems, especially from like the a-religious side, it just seems like a spiritual battle all the way down. And it was only ever the new atheists for some little spell who thought we were just talking science versus this, and everybody else was actually just doing religion versus religion and kind of riding the backs of the new atheists, slipping it in on them.
It did feel like for a second we were talking like just materialism versus, you know, immaterialism or science versus religion or whatever. But the problem is, it's like the non-religious part of it will ironically loop back to meta irony. And like, I mean, how many times can you ironically do satanic shit before you're just doing satanic shit? Like, the whole flying spaghetti monster thing, it's ironic. Yeah, the whole like the Satan. We don't actually worship Satan. Anyway, abortion is a religious ritual of ours. It's all ironic though. Like you're ironically doing all of the stuff, so you might as well just be doing it.
Yeah, Did you just see today that guy went and cut off the head of that Satanic Temple's statue in I think it's Ohio in the
No.
courthouse? But the Satanic Temple's kind of like a little bit the same thing, and like they claim that they're just making a secular point, and then before long they're actually kind of playing the game at the same time. But
Yeah.
this video, what I'm going to bring up right here, so there was an abortion clinic that was put in Mexico, and they named it after Judge Alito on purpose because Judge Alito they were blaming for being part of removing abortion rights in the US. But then all these different people started going down and holding these, just exactly like what Jared is saying, these weird blood ritual abortion things in front of the Judge Alito thing they named for him. It's like, okay, you guys are trying to make your one point, but you are also now just doing it like abortion magic. And they
with everything that's going on in America right now. So I'm here for conversation, and if you have questions, those two. I think it's finally time.
Okay.
Well,
let's see.
We just got raided by.
Or the fetal remains within.
They're using their fetal remains to make Wiccan rituals, and this is like, what was how did Hillary Clinton say it? Like safe, legal, and rare. And these Wiccans are dead seriously saying that they get 9-month energy boost for the time that they would have been pregnant if they do these rituals. Like it's a it's a spiritual boost for 9 months or whatever. So they go and try to do it for real.
I mean, if you eat something's heart, you get its power, right? That's just science.
Yeah.
I have the strength of a person and a fetus.
Yeah.
Did you eat a lot of chicken hearts in Brazil, Jared?
Oh, buckets of them.
Did you get the power? You have the power of every one of those little chickens.
That's why I'm so much moderately stronger than I would have otherwise been.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how much power. Have you ever seen the clip of who is it? There's a director talking about how dumb chickens are. Have you guys ever seen that?
I've seen Dennis Prager talking about it.
I think it's Wim Wenders or who's the other guy? It's not Wim Wenders. It's is it Werner Herzog?
Werner Herzog.
Oh, I bet.
You should.
My dad says that the funniest thing he ever saw in his life was drunk chickens.
What I hear from a bunch of people is that there's mean chickens. I mean, that's what the word henpecking comes about. Like they will bully the smallest and weakest among them. And so that's why Destiny should use their marginalization of their weak as a good reason to rape them.
To bury or otherwise, to where we find a way to properly dispose of the fetal remains in a way that gives reverence and respect and support to this sacred abortion experience.
So she doesn't respect her baby, but she does care about having a sacred abortion experience.
Okay.
There's these things like these guys go over it in this thing. It's this was called like the Church of the Eternal Logos or something like that. But they all have like 3 million views on each one of them. Maybe because people are like watching, like what the F, or maybe people are into it. And there's a lot of
sacred abortion experience.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And they're in droves going down to that Judge Alito abortion clinic to have their ritualistic abortion there.
I remember when they told us that nobody liked abortion, that it was medically necessary. Yeah. It's health.
No, that's so Louis C.K. his 2017 special. He opens it up. It's one of like my favorite opening ever. He just talks about abortion and how safe, legal, and rare didn't make any sense because you're like, wait a minute, like if you're either taking a shit or you're killing a baby. There's not really anything in between. So if rare, why ever? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense if they make them explain like they're
and if you're just taking a shit, then if it's meaningless, then why would you care if it's rare?
Yeah.
Yeah. Abortion, man. abortions. The whole entire world of feminism, from first wave to last wave to whatever the heck wave it is now, has been one big sex cult. I hate to tell you. But some good things came out of it. A couple good votes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Women can work, credit cards. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's all been a crazy sex cult, as crazy as any Scientology, whatever. And that's your world, feminist.
Well, yeah, and we're all old enough. Like, we're all old enough that we've learned, like, just because you get everything you want, you know, like if you could just set up the world to get everything you want, that's not a great world, you know?
Mm-mm.
Like,
No.
you know, I've done that enough times where I look back on it, it's like, oh, that was terrible. I don't need everything that I want.
So there's this dude I know who he's been good with his money, so he's going to retire fairly young. He's like 53, I think, and that sounds awesome. And he doesn't have like, what's that? Oh,
I said I can hear you. I'm stepping away.
He doesn't have like a wife or kids or anything, and he doesn't really have any hobbies. So what he's gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do once you retire? And he said, well, I'm gonna play video games and drink beer all day, every day. And I was like, that sounds awesome for like 8 hours. Because I actually my wife went to go visit with her family, and so I got like a weekend alone at home, and it was fucking awesome. But only for like 2 days, because that's most of what I did. I was like, I want to play a lot of video games, I'm gonna drink a lot of beer, and I did, and it was great. But like after like the second day, I was like, I got another day of this. I gotta live it up while I can. But it was like miserable. I'm eating just dog shit food and just getting drunk for the third day in a row and playing more video games, and my mind is melting.
It's fun for a day, but it's good to get back to real life.
Yeah, I hate that. I don't want real life to be good to get back to, but it is. Maybe this whole humans want responsibility thing has some merit to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, anyway, how's life there, Risto?
Hey, it's
Where did
good.
Chris go?
It's good to like see you guys. You know, Jared, we've chatted quite a bit, but I don't think we've ever like seen each other face to face in a conversation. And
no, we've never been on a live together.
And Flip, like, I feel like we're always on the same wavelength with things that we like, whether it's Kurosawa movies or the Danielson family.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're like the third person in the world that I know who's heard of them.
But it's like not just those; it's like it's constantly things, you know, where I'm like, oh, Flip and I are like on the same wavelength with that stuff.
I have a question about Finland. Are you not supposed to say Laplander, a Lap or a Laplander about the Somi people?
The Sami. So I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't know much about that.
I just wondered because I was reading about it, and like on Wikipedia, they're like, "Oh, you don't say Laplander. That's out of fashion. That's bad." And I just wonder, is that real or is it woke bullshit? Like we don't say Eskimo anymore.
Well, I've only met like one. There was one Finnish family that we met, and they identified like they had background and they said Sami. So
Sami. I said it. I'm sure I said it wrong.
Well, the word for Finnish or in Finland is Suomi, so there's that.
Suomi,
but then Sami is, I think, the native people.
And and they're completely separate group of people, right? Different language family and everything.
I think so. Yep.
So did you guys see this clip from CNN at all? That made the round
No.
on Twitter. So this is why people are kind of saying, "Hey, I think they're gonna put the woke away." Because listen to this.
Free speech.
Can you imagine this? Like one of the things that we've talked about is like how Deline and Larson, maybe even my parents, like all they've watched is CNN and MSNBC for 4 or 5 years, and now because this stuff at the with the university presidents and Israel, like you're seeing a little bit of a hill turn from these places. I'm just imagining those guys who denied any of this existed for several years suddenly see this on CNN.
reforms, right?
I hope so.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what Freed says.
Here's my take. When one thinks of America's greatest strengths, the kind of assets the world looks at with admiration and envy, America's elite universities would long have been at the top of that list. But the American public has been losing faith in these universities for good reason. 3 university presidents came under fire this week for their vague and indecisive answers when asked whether calling for the genocide of Jews would violate their institutions' codes of conduct. But to understand their performance, we have to understand the broad shift that has taken place at elite universities, which have gone from being centers of excellence to institutions pushing political agendas.
But you
Wow.
believe this was on CNN. Okay.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, like, I don't
What
know,
the
3 or
hell?
4 years ago, they would deny that this was even taking place on college campuses. Now they're just saying, look, they have a political agenda. Look, CNN has a political agenda. When are they going to turn the camera on themselves?
Isn't this beautiful?
This is beautiful.
Well, you got to give them some credit, though, right? They at least said that if you genocide Jews, that probably breaks their policy.
It depends on the context.
That's
and
true. That's
action. They have to take action on the
transformation.
Is it at least
the honor
the-
people? The
I mean,
right
so
to
long as it's
expression
the
is very
oppressed.
sacred to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long as it's the oppressed that are doing the genocide, it's okay, right?
It's true.
Totally.
People sense the transformation. As Paul Tuff has pointed out, the share of young adults who said a college degree was very important fell from 74% in 2013 to just 41% in 2019.
Wow.
In 2018, 61% of those polls said higher education was headed in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
and only 38% felt it was on the right track. In 2016, 70% of America's high school graduates were headed for college. Now that number is 62%. This souring on higher education makes America an outlier among all advanced nations. American universities have been neglecting a core focus on excellence in order to pursue a variety of agendas, many of them clustered around diversity and inclusion. It started with the best of intentions. Colleges wanted to make sure young people of all backgrounds.
Do you know how many CNN watchers I've had tell me none of this is happening? Even just this week, I saw on TikTok this guy.
Okay,
who
but
said
we
culture
talked
war.
about this though. That go on.
Oh, I was just saying the guy said a culture war is just completely a right wing invention to trick you.
No.
I just saw that this week. But what?
Yeah.
Go ahead with what you were saying.
No, we talked about this before. That like we're like assuming the woke goes away. We're like 2 years out from like the wokest people you know say like, yeah, I never fell for that transing children bullshit. You know.
Yeah.
And, like, what are you talking about? That's going to be a difficult thing to do when we have Twitter. You know, everybody's like documented their own shitty opinions for the last 8 years at least. Every tiny, minute bullshit one of them. And I'm gonna be able to pull it up and be like, I can't believe you didn't want to. You don't think that kids should be allowed to take hormones and that fuck
You
with their
have
bone
blood
density and shit
on
like
your
that?
hands is what they told us.
You have blood on your hands and you recorded it.
Yeah, you're erasing trans people if you don't think giving little children hormones is a good idea.
But that's a minority. I mean, this is a minority of people who are kind of seeing this and kind of waking up from it. You know, you have the majority of like, especially even young people. It's like what percent are like hardcore Marxist? You know, like they've been trained for the 12 years or 13 years they're at school to buy into kind of that.
Yeah, they're just
seeing the world.
They're just on the side. They're just like they could listen to this directly and not be like. In my mind, this is talking to those normies that we usually point to Delin and RFM and people like that, the kind of boomer area, who my parents are also, and I've tried to tell them for years that colleges aren't what they think colleges are, and they just no, and those are the people we're kind of generally reaching. But you're right, there are the complete believers who are just listening to this and being like, no, triple down, cancel Fareed Zakaria, get Fareed Zakaria.
They're like the people that are still wearing masks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
backgrounds had access to higher education and felt comfortable on campus. But those good intentions have morphed into a dogmatic ideology.
This is all like right out of Jonathan Haidt that we were bringing up and trying to get people to watch and show it to them, years ago.
And turned these universities into places where the pervasive goals are political and social engineering, not academic merit.
Wow. This is like giant.
I told you. This
I
is a
remember-
huge deal.
I remember all the way back when the only people who believed that were Fox News listeners. Who had
Fox
never read
News
a
would have
book.
pussied out of this a year ago.
Yeah.
Whatever. And they just wait for like one person like to chip at the crack. And as soon as enough people start chipping at the cracks, it's like the dam breaks and it all floods out and everyone starts talking about how horrible it is.
Right. Yes. Let's hope this is
This is a huge crack, okay, forming.
Right.
Yeah, see,
As the evidence produced for the recent Supreme Court.
that's wishful thinking. I don't.
think so too.
Maybe
That's
for
the-
like old people, like over 35, and a few younger people, but
Those CNN watchers they still lost all their viewers, and then still just like some boomers. It's like getting some boomers who were never going to be at the front of the battle anyway to finally realize it.
Court case on affirmative action showed universities have systematically downplayed merit-based criteria for admissions in favor of racial quotas. Some universities' response to this ruling seems to be that they will go further down this path, eliminating the requirement for any standardized tests like the SAT.
I went blue in my face trying to tell my parents and my siblings about them getting rid of testing, and that the reasons my nephews didn't get into BYU with perfect scores and perfect grades didn't have to do with them not doing enough extracurriculars. But nope, I was a crazy person. But now they might have seen it on CNN.
Move would allow them to then take students with little reference to objective criteria. Of course, those who would suffer most would be bright students from poor backgrounds who normally use tests like the SAT to demonstrate their qualifications.
And this allows him also to take in dumb students with the right politics.
Right.
So it serves two purposes here.
Yes, and this segment is so amazing because now he's going into like the whole they're getting rid of standardized scores, like they're trying to do
Yeah, what they're saying, I think is true. Like it blows my mind that it's like some of these were topics that we hashed out and fought over for like 3 months at a time, just like the one little point, and he's just like dumping them all out in one segment all of a sudden on CNN, like just every single one of them.
First, diversity and inclusion.
And you're racist if you bring it up.
Yep.
In the humanities, hiring for new academic positions now appears to center on the race and gender of the applicant, as well as the subject matter, which needs to be about marginalized groups. A white man studying the American presidency does not have a prayer of getting tenure at a major history department in America today.
Whoa! They're saying the quiet part out loud here.
I know.
I left grad school 13 years ago knowing this, and it only took 13, 14, 15, 16 years ago. And everybody else knew it too. Like if you were in the humanities, you're not getting a job unless it's very specific, or you're willing to move to like some part in Saskatchewan or something like that. But
oh, is this amazing?
Look, 2 years ago, if you would have said that on CNN, they would have said, "Look, you're a white nationalist." Now you got Fareed Zakaria saying it.
It's
right?
amazing.
What are you talking about? Is this the great replacement theory that he's talking about here? What's he saying?
Grade inflation in the humanities is rampant. At Yale, the median grade is now an A. New subjects crop up that are really political agendas, not academic fields. You can now major in diversity, equity, and inclusion at some colleges. The ever-growing bureaucracy devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion naturally recommends that more time and energy be spent on these issues. The most obvious lack of diversity at universities, political diversity, which clearly affects their ability to analyze many issues, is never addressed, showing that these goals are not centrally related to achieving or sustaining or building excellence.
Yeah, CNN saying there's not enough conservatives in these colleges.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
so, he's got more. So we keep listening to Zakaria.
Trigger warnings, microaggressions. As the authors Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff have discussed, many of these colleges have instituted speech codes that make it a violation of university rules to say things that some groups might find offensive. Universities advise.
Look, you notice that article is from 2015. Look at that.
Yes.
2015.
Listen, better late than never. All
Right. So
I brought it up forever ago about like the weird line that you have to draw between gaslighting and off ramps. Like, there's some sort of level of they're gonna come at you and say, I never said a thing, I'm not apologizing for it. But at the same time, there's a level of like, if you guys just get off all this DEI stuff, I'll let you gaslight me, please.
Yeah.
You know, please just get off it. You know, before I was talking about that with the LDS and how it was debating with apologists 20 years ago, where they just said stuff didn't exist or didn't happen, and nowadays they'll say, we always said it happened, it was always there, we always agreed to it, and we were there when like no, you apologists, you people were denying certain things.
That's one thing that drives me nuts about Cardin, because he pulls like, oh, this old thing again.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Cardin, we're old enough to remember when everybody denied this old thing. So
And it exists, but then there's like a level of like, okay, well, I'll let you gaslight me if you just say the thing exists, because there was a long time where you just said it didn't exist, and you'd gaslight me when I said it exists, and you said no, it didn't exist. You know? So I'll take the gaslighting if we can agree on reality a little. That's
bargain.
Yeah, I think that's a weird dichotomy. Not enough people have like pointed out that there's some sort of fine line between a gaslight and an off ramp.
Whoa, wait.
Because the other
CNN
side is no, you hold to your belief. I remember your belief. You hold to your shit belief. And they say, okay, I'll hold to my shit belief. And then I go, oh, damn it. Like,
Holy shit, I walked in. I didn't realize CNN's talking about Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, CNN got new like leadership a little while back. Like
that's true.
Like
Yeah.
before they let go of Don Lemon.
I don't even remember what the article was. But just like 3 or 4 days ago, my dad called me up, and bear in mind that my dad literally doesn't know the difference between email and a Facebook. And he was like, "Have you heard of this magazine, The Atlantis?" They were saying the craziest things. That's right out of Marx. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, I've been trying to tell you this stuff for a while. And I don't even remember what it was, but even he was
Jared,
picking up on it like, what the?
I just have the video in front of me, so I didn't see that you weren't there. But this is a long segment on Fareed Zakaria, just basically going through every single point of.
Oh, I saw most of it. I just didn't. I stepped out for the part when he pulled up the calling of the American mind. That's insane.
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Right.
It took 8 years to get this article on CNN.
It did.
Yeah, but we've been talking about this for that long, easily.
Got a height.
The article's from 2015.
I got a height looking off.
Yeah.
All out there. Yeah.
Many of these colleges have instituted speech codes that make it a violation of university rules to say things that some groups might find offensive. Universities advise students not to speak, act, even dress in ways that might cause offense to some minority groups. With this culture of virtue signaling growing, the George Floyd protests erupted and many universities latched on and issued statements effectively aligning their institutions with these protests. By my memory, few took such steps even after 9/11 or during the Iraq War. In this context, it is understandable that Jewish groups would wonder, why do safe spaces, microaggressions, and hate speech not apply to us? If universities can take positions against free speech to make some groups feel safe, why not us? Having coddled so many student groups for so long, university administrators found themselves squirming, unable to explain why certain groups, Jews, Asians, don't seem to count in these conversations. Having gone so far down the ideological path, these universities and these presidents could not make the case clearly that at the center of a university is the free expression of ideas, and that while harassment and intimidation would not be tolerated, offensive speech would and should be protected.
So wait a minute. Is
CNN's
the story here just that normie lefties will only notice discrimination when it's finally happening to Jews?
Pretty much.
Because I'm like,
but
he's
now
like,
it's all...
well, Jews. He's like, the Jews just found out that, like, hang on a second, you can say whatever you want about the other, about about us, but the other guys, you can't say that about. And I was like, yeah, that's been the case for a while now, guys. You've been able to shit on white people forever, and you guys were laughing when we would say that.
Yep.
Well, it's the whole philosophy of the power imbalance, you know.
Oh, it's the punching down thing. It's
yeah. And the guy up top, you can punch, you can shoot, you can do anything you want to the guy at the top.
Yeah. So then did you see that the Harvard's president got caught out by Christopher Rufo for plagiarizing her dissertation?
I did. I also heard that they're going to keep her around.
Not only that, they came up with critical Harvard president theory. Let's see if I can find it here. Stop sharing. Present. Share screen. Where'd it go? Bill Ackman's comments on Cloudingate are an unabashed racist attack and a clear misogynoir.
Misogynoir?
Yeah.
That
just like stealth misogyny, is that what we're talking
I've
about?
never heard misogynoir, but now I want to create like a genre of film, misogynoir.
I think Robin DiAngelo mentions it in White Fragility. I can't quite remember, but I've definitely heard it before.
So who's Bill Ackman? Is the problem just that he brought it forward? Is it like the wrong messenger?
I don't know. They'll latch onto anybody who they can.
Oh,
link to, I'm guessing.
Misogynoir is a term referring to misogyny directed toward black women.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen this.
Wow, that's great.
That is creative.
He's a donor. I've seen him. He's a donor who I saw him on like on a thing of him saying that he would pull his donations from different. He's a hedge fund manager, but he donated a lot to the universities and said he'd pull them. I was kind of expecting to be like some rando guy they could link to white supremacy or something like that. But the Harvard president critical theory. I saw some people let me see if I can pull the thing Christopher Rufo pulled, because Rufo called it out before he suddenly started the things. He said, I'm guessing they're gonna start, not Christopher Rufo, it was oh goodness, who was it? Talk amongst yourselves.
Oh Lord, put us on the spot like this. So I started playing, if Charles Wagner's still on, I started playing Alan Wake, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And I like it so far.
Get this. So I'm looking up Bill Ackman, Wikipedia, in his early life and education. He received the Bachelor of Arts degree magna cum laude in social studies from Harvard College. His thesis was titled Scaling the Ivy Wall, the Jewish and Asian American Experience in Harvard Admission. That was 1988. 1988.
He was already.
I'm sorry. Were Jews and Asians having a hard time in 1988? Like, demographically, like, how were they doing success-wise?
I think they've been pretty successful.
They're doing great now.
Yeah. Look at this. Colin Wright says, I'm sure any moment now, someone from the Critical Plagiarism Studies Department will explain to us how plagiarism is an oppressive social construct imposed by white Western settler colonialists, and that we all need to acknowledge and embrace other ways of citing. Other ways of citing.
Oh, God.
Then it comes out. Anti-plagiarism policies harm Black and Latinx students, professor argues. And then he just like posts after, all right, folks, I'm out.
They're just embracing the whole soft bigotry of low expectations thing.
Then I saw this stuff like all over Twitter. Say it with me. Black women do not owe you their citations. Black women do not owe you their citations.
Who does? I want to ask that person. Who does owe you citations? Who owes me citations? We know it's not black.
Rufo's examples are just the tip of the iceberg in 4 articles published between 93 and 2017. And one of the things they pointed out about her is she's the Harvard president and she's woefully underrepresented in her publications. And then the ones she does have are plagiarized. Like, it kind of blows my mind because, like, this is Harvard. Like, it's the top of the top, right? And we're not idiots. We don't think that there aren't extremely successful black people out there. Like, it's only going to be down the road if every single university needs to have a black president that they'll have to start getting to some shady diversity hires, right? They should have been able to find a perfectly meritorious black professor or black person to be the president of Harvard, right? How did even they find a complete diversity hire?
I'm pretty excited for the comedy, like the comedies that'll come out about this shit years down the road when Seth Rogen pretends he was never woke and like, starts making fun of shit like this, where you get like a clearly unqualified diversity hire in at the highest levels possible.
Well, so back to that debate or that bet between Academic Agent and Arna McIntyre. Will they put the woke away? All this happened. CNN's talking that way. All that's going on. But guess what happened to this lady? Do you guys know?
Oh, this lady. Yeah, she's fine.
100%.
They're not getting rid of her.
The faculty reinforced their faith and belief in her. The board 100% reinforced their faith and belief in her as the president, even if she is a plagiarist and would be kicked out as a student.
Well, for now,
yeah,
I wouldn't bet money on her for long term.
Yeah, they'd probably come up with like a different way or reason to get them out or something like that.
Yeah, well, we had. Did you guys talk about the thing that happened with Hamlin University in Minnesota?
No,
there
I
was
don't know even what this.
There was a professor here who was I think it was an art professor, and she was going through Islamic art, and she said, "I'm going to be presenting Islamic depictions of the Prophet Muhammad in my class, just warning you all." So she gave them warning ahead of time, and then she showed it in class, and one of the students reported on her, who stayed in the class and then was triggered by that. And then the university fired her and said all kinds of terrible things about her. Well, they didn't fire her. They just didn't hire back her contract. They didn't renew it. But then that president, so then their Facebook for the next 6 months was just people constantly posting pictures of Muhammad. And finally they forced out the president.
Oh my gosh. I hadn't even heard that one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do think there'll be other ways they'll figure out to come up with getting rid of or ousting these programs, but it also just kind of shows that they still can't just like put it away, like announcing, okay, we're putting the woke away, like pack it in, guys. And part of it is that so much of the stuff has been just driven into the policies through, they drove it into everything. They're putting in the back work of getting it in where it's not easily pried out. Here's Peter Boghossian. The demise of the dominant ideology will now come quickly. Do not expect the thugs and bullies who weaponize these uniquely idiotic ideas to apologize. Instead, expect epic gaslighting. I never believed it. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't think he realizes how deep it goes, because I mean, he's relatively new to criticizing the stuff that's been going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's true believers. There's true belief. I mean, it really did become its own way of like religious thinking. There's true belief, and a lot of it.
And if you only look at it through the Marxism lens, weren't there concerted efforts to like bring that into the U.S. and when did the McCarthy stuff happen?
McCarthy's like the 60s, wasn't it?
So, and I mean, that stuff wasn't fake. One of the authors that I really like, he lost his job in Hollywood because he made it like an anti-communist movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've pointed to before. Look at Razor Fist's videos on Hollywood Was Always Red.
Yeah.
Those are really good. Let me show you this. Here's the Here's the beheaded, a Christian veteran tore down and beheaded the Satanic Temple statue in Iowa State Capitol.
You're gonna act like such victims after tearing down how many fucking statues?
Yeah, no doubt. And that guy got arrested. None of them want people who tear down any of their statues ever get arrested. Or if they do, they're right back out.
You destroy a fucking Thomas Jefferson statue, you get a scholarship out of it.
You get the Thomas Jefferson Scholarship of Excellence. Check out this tiki-taki. Hold on.
Was there no Mormon weirdness this week?
We talked at the beginning about Apostle, the new Apostle.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't very many weirdness, but we talked about him. Let me show you my scale on guessing if he would be a good apostle or not. I'll show you that in just a second. But first, let's. I wanted to. Oh, damn it! Where did it go? This guy's pretty funny. There's no sound. I can't rewind these, can
I don't know. There's probably a way, but
with the essay using ChatGPT. I mean, you wrote a flawless 50-page essay, but as everyone knows, you can't speak English. Please don't cry.
It's a pity there's racism at such a prestigious university.
Excuse me?
Many foreigners actually excel at writing English.
Wow. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. This is America, a country built on racism. Equality here is a mere facade.
We believe you cheated.
Yeah, I was gonna show Jared my my scale on judging the new.
Oh yeah.
Let's see if it makes sense to you. Where'd it go though? Window, entire screen, window, clone tab. It won't show it. Gosh dang it! Hold on.
what type of tea you got there, Risto?
It's Taiwanese green oolong.
He's big into tea. So,
Whoa. Is it oolong or is it smoked?
Some can be. Oolong is like a category. Like I don't know what the
And what makes oolong oolong?
that it can have a certain amount of oxidation. Like it's kind of the in-between space between green and black.
Oh.
The whole range.
Semi-oxidized Chinese tea.
Yeah.
So, my guess is how impressed would he be with Dan McClellan is on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's 10, you got yourself a managerial revolution.
Oh God.
And since the guy's like a PR dude and he's supposedly super nice and works with refugees, I bet you if he just saw Dan talk a little bit about structuralism, he would just be amazed. Is my guess.
Doesn't that mean he ought to pass the mic though?
I guess so.
I should have photoshopped in like a new apostle and then just put like the apostle John, John, not the apostle, John the Baptist in there, like in camel hair and everything.
John the Baptist would not be impressed by McClellan.
That's the only Mormon thing I really know going on. I listened to Delin and RFM and them had like their 3-year or whatever anniversary and they just played replay clips. I didn't see the other lady pray to Saturn again, which they get in that Occult Feminism book about praying to Saturn and Ishtar is one of those things.
They did start. RFM mentioned the Gen Camp disbarment suit got dropped
Again and again and again.
It's dropped.
Yeah, it's dropped.
It's fully dropped. Is it with prejudice or without, or is it even?
I guess I don't. Well, no. This she only did one against RFM. The first was an anti-stalking injunction against John Dehlin. Then she was like a wrongful termination against John Dehlin. And then because RFM like shared stuff that was public record. She tried to get him disbarred, and she's just a fucking nutcase.
The world will not give her a break.
Oh,
So
poor
one of
kid.
the things,
A single mom, 40 hours a week.
yeah, well, one of the things that we were pointing to Flip is that that Trent Horn, who's debating Destiny, is going to be somebody who Jacob's going to debate pretty soon. That's
funny.
A little bit of a something.
Yeah.
But look at this Flip. I think you'll want to watch this one from the Ward Midnight Mormons. If I say Ward, would anybody even follow me at all? Like,
Ward Radio. They really could have just stuck with Midnight Mormons.
they can't use Mormon, man.
Oh.
Look at this. They're going to go over the God Makers.
Oh wow.
Oh.
When is that?
I read the
Tomorrow?
book. I know I watched the film at some point.
I mean,
Didn't you meet the person who made it or something?
I met Ed Decker. He was one of the people involved with them. Yeah.
What was he like?
Really nice guy. Because I remember, like, he was one of the big monsters of, like, especially in the mission field, because you learn about anti-Mormons, and there were, like, Gerald and Sandra Tanner were like the two biggest names. Then like Walter Martin was next. He wrote The Kingdom of the Cults. And then and because Walter Martin never had anything to do with Mormonism. So Gerald and Sandra Tanner were ex-Mormons, and then Dick Bear and Ed Decker were like, those five names were like the pantheon of anti-Mormonism. And yeah, Ed Decker, I met him. No, sorry, Dick Bear. I met Dick Bear, not Ed Decker. But yeah, Ed Decker and Dick Bear made the God Makers.
It's been a while since I've seen the God Makers. How historic, like how accurate is it?
I think they'll be able to kind of rip on it being off.
Because I remember watching it and thinking like it's a caricature. They really.
So
like,
I remember like one of the things they
out-
say is like celestial sex.
Yeah.
I remember thinking you could probably find like one general authority that mentioned that or something like that. But I'm just like I'm having flashbacks from their takedown of the CES letter, and that was just god awful.
One of the I remember one of the most like egregious propagandistic dishonest things they do in God Makers is they're talking about like witchcraft, and they're like the narration is talking about witchcraft and spell casting and Satanism, and they're showing roll of primary kids singing Popcorn Popping on the Apricot Tree, but it's slowed down. So they've got this image of these kids going like this.
Oh, that's terrible.
And they're talking about spell casting, and it's the most like shitty,
Oh my god,
like tabloid editing you can.
But you
ever
know
imagine.
what's happening.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's
one of
such a
the
caricature.
That's one of the funny things I saw on Latter Day Lobsters this week. That somebody was talking about people who say popcorn popping on the apricot tree is a metaphor for non-believers. It's trying to blackpill you, that finding out that it wasn't really so, but it seemed to be.
You just looked out. All you had to do was look out the window, and you would see.
All you had to do is look out the window, and you would see.
I think if I had to guess, some old guy had a kid or a grandkid that said, "Is that popcorn out there?" Like, no, that's an apricot tree. It's apricots. And then the kid was like, "Oh, okay." And then he wrote a song of it. That's like I'm 98% sure that's how it happened. Anyway, I was actually curious. Risto here was gonna say something about the Trent Horn Jacob Hansen debate. I want to hear what you think is going to happen.
Well, Trent, I was saying earlier, Trent is very good at debating, very like good on his feet. He like you can just say something and then he just keeps pursuing it and pushing you back. You know, it was listening to him that really kind of made me rethink my position on abortion, or realize that like if you're just going to be like, I think it's like, 28 weeks, and you just put some arbitrary number and you debate Trent Horn, he's going to end up pushing you all the way back to conception.
Well, he's pretty good. He was good in that debate because the easiest way to win a debate about abortion against Destiny is to just because Destiny is hell-bent on being consistent, which is something I usually like. But it's almost like to have his take on abortion and be consistent, you have to have like legitimately evil beliefs. Like, because Trent Horn gets him to admit in there that like, yeah, if we had like brainless humans, it would be morally acceptable to use them as organic sex dolls. And you're like, oh yeah, that's an evil thing you just said.
Right.
Yeah, he got
that's where
him.
Trent Horn is, I would hate to debate him. Like I've seen him debate people on topics where I disagree with Trent Horn, and I still think Trent Horn won the debate. So, like, I'm surprised. It'll be interesting to see how the debate goes. Like, the only thing that might be in Jacob's favor is I feel like most of the time Catholics and Protestants don't really do their homework very well on Mormon beliefs. And
Yeah, I did watch some of Trent Horn's stuff on Mormonism, and he gets a few things weird. Like, I mean, he gets all the shibboleth pronunciations wrong for sure. I talk about the Lamanites and the Nephites and stuff.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's difficult to say. See, my thing is, in any time I delve into these Christian online spheres, I'm just like, why do you guys care so much about the Mormons? I don't understand it, because a lot of you get to Trent Horn or Apologia Studios, a lot of what they're talking about is like, oh, we don't like abortion and we don't like wokeness. And I'm like, yeah, the Mormons are the same. Like the Mormons are on your side here. So maybe you got a bigger enemy, set down your swords and fight this common enemy together.
right. Well, and I think you do see some of that, but it's always the people closest to, close to your camp that kind of get it wrong. Like if you're a New York Yankees fan and someone gets a wrong take about a player you like or has a different perspective on the Yankees, you're probably arguing with them more than you are someone that's an Oakland A's fan.
I suppose, but even as I remember as a Mormon, yeah, I'm sure they will. But I just remember even as a Mormon, the things that when I would talk to Christians and they would want to get into doctrine stuff, they would start talking about how I am blasphemous because I don't believe in the Trinity. And well, I don't really think you're blasphemous for believing in the Trinity. I think you're wrong about it, but I don't think it's a big enough deal to really matter. But other sects of Christianity seem to think that is an absolute hill to die on, and you will go to hell if you don't believe in the Trinity as I do.
Right. Yeah, there's lots of arguing about just the tiniest minutia possible, and it not just in mainstream Christian groups. Any group, I feel like at some point it will devolve into arguing about some super tiny thing.
Yeah.
This is usually how it goes. I found this tweet by Bill Ackman. I just had it on the screen. I should have had it down when you guys were talking, but I can't see. I wish I had double screen so I could see what I was doing over there when the thing was on. But Bill Ackman says, imagine the following. You're a man who serves as chairman of the board of a large university who led the search for the recently hired president. Your wife runs a nonprofit in the DEI space. She is the only full-time employee of the organization, serving as founder, CEO, and CFO. You serve as treasurer. The nonprofit ostensibly sells two principal products in the DEI space, quotation marks evidence-based how-to guide, and quotation marks the most comprehensive intersectional analytic platform of its kind. But the nonprofit has no revenues. It relies entirely on contributions to fund its operations, which principally consists of your wife's salary and some other ancillary overhead. There have been only two contributors to the nonprofit, the university whose board you chair, which has contributed $100,000 in 2018, 2019, $300,000, 2020, $150,000, 2021, $600,000, 2022, $789,000, and a donor-advised fund affiliated with you, which has contributed $10,000 and $20,000. Doesn't this seem very strange? Well, what if that university was MIT? What if that chairman was Mark Gorenberg? What if that nonprofit is parody.org? Why are so many conflict scandals concerning DEI? I mean, that sort of stuff beyond just the professor of, the president of Harvard, exposing stuff like that is that sort of thing is going to start putting a dent in DEI stuff pretty darn hard.
Well, they attach themselves so heavily to Marxism, or at least anti-capitalism explicitly, and then they're taking all this money. It's always the funniest shit ever. I got that sponsored ad from Cornell to get a certificate in DEI, and I was like, I'll click on it. I want to see what it is, and it was like a $4,000 course, and I'm like, that's the funniest shit ever. I'm gonna pay $4,000 for this course, and half of it's gonna be shitting on capitalism.
You know what's funny is because you rang a bell of something that happened earlier this week that I wanted to bring up. Because I've been watching Saturday Night Live from the 90s. And so one thing I wanted to bring up about watching Saturday Night Live from the early 90s is like, because, you know, the hatchlings that we talk about all the time, you know, for whom like all of this stuff is brand new. Saturday Night Live from the early 90s, they reference woke shit all the time. Like, so you can tell that it was like part of, especially because all those guys came out of colleges, was obviously a big part of what they were thinking about and talking about then. So like this whole like, oh, back in the 90s, this was all, you know, it was whatever, Republican hellscape. Like, no, you can watch Saturday Night Live, you can see that shit. But specifically what Jared talked about is like, you know, the communists taking money is that, you know who the special guest was on the episode that Rage Against the Machine was musical guest? The guest when Rage Against the Machine are the musical guest. The guest was Steve Forbes.
I remember that episode. He was terrible.
He
One
was
of my
so bad. There was
one of my best
thing that
friends.
was funny was when I think it was Mark McKinney was like the whole setup was that Mark McKinney was doing his Steve Forbes, and so the show was Steve Forbes interviewing Steve Forbes. That was the only part of that episode that was any good at all.
Yeah, one of my
You're
best
right.
friends,
Steve Forbes
his
was awful.
his favorite example is to bring up is getting advertisements for Tom Morello's Masterclass guitar for $39.99, several payments or whatever.
See, like, because I remember, like, you know, even in the 90s when Rage Against the Machine was at their peak. And I remember people talking
First
about
time
like,
I heard their
Fugazi.
name.
Because meanwhile there was Fugazi, and Fugazi was the underground band, and they were famous. That like I can't remember exactly what it was, but like they never charged more than $5 for a CD, and they never charged more than $8 for a ticket, and like which was like less than half of a typical band. Like I remember the first rock concert I ever saw was They Might Be Giants in 1995, and I think the ticket was like $15. You know, nowadays They Might Be Giants ticket is $30 to $50 easy peasy. But so at that time, Fugazi only charged $8 for a ticket, and they were like the for real like anti-capitalist band. I mean, it's not even anti-capitalist. Their whole thing is like, you know, we want to make enough money to live, but we're not gonna, because you know at that time it wasn't that much long after that Bruce Springsteen was charging $100 a ticket, and he was already a gajillionaire. But you know, Rage Against the Machine was not giving away tickets or albums for $5 or $8 at that time. They were charging regular.
Yeah, they were only ever
A-list. Yeah, they only ever charged A-list prices for their concerts.
Right before Napster hit.
Yeah.
Those Napster South Park were amazing.
Yeah.
This is Joey Fatone. If you pirate his music, he won't be able to get another swimming pool for his crib.
You know what's funny though, because like
I just saw this.
apparently, I mean, I would love somebody to do like in-depth journalism about this, but apparently, like super early on in South Park, like before it was anything, when they were like signing their first contracts with Comedy Central and MTV, and because you know whatever, I don't even know what the parent company of that is or was at that time, but apparently back then, like because the internet was nothing, and Trey and Matt were smart enough, or their lawyers, I don't know who, were smart enough to negotiate for almost nothing, like 50% of internet revenue for South Park forever.
Shit.
And they are fucking billionaires because of that move. Because I think everybody else is like, internet schminternet, what is this shit? We don't understand it. And they're like, yeah, well, we'll take half of internet. Just imagine what that is at this point.
Jesus.
Now. Yeah.
It's
like oh, sorry, you can play this. Oh, is this?
The enormity of their stupidity is just overwhelming. You have to do yourself a favor when you're out in the countryside and you see chicken try to look a chicken in the eye with great intensity, and the intensity of stupidity that is looking back at you is just amazing. By the way, it's very easy to hypnotize a chicken. They're very prone to hypnosis, and in 1 or 2 films I've actually shown that.
I don't remember the exact references, but anytime Werner Herzog gets brought up on The Simpsons, I'm about to laugh my ass off. It's always the funniest shit ever. The only thing of his I've ever seen though is Grizzly Man.
You know what's funny is that in like 1998, I think it was 98 or 99, because I know it was before I went on my mission, and I watched Siskel and Ebert, and I remember they reviewed a Werner Herzog documentary, and I remember at that time thinking, I want to watch that, and I still haven't seen it. And it was a documentary called Little Dieter Wants to Fly, about a German who got shot down in Vietnam, a German fighter pilot who got like, somehow he volunteered for the Americans, something like that. I don't know how it worked out. But I never, to this day, I've been waiting to watch this stupid fucking Werner Herzog movie, and for some reason, it's been nearly 3 decades. I haven't gotten around to it.
He acts and stuff too. There's like just some.
Yeah,
like,
no, he was in fucking Mandalorian. He was in
Jack
Mandalorian.
Reacher, the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher. He's just the bad guy in it.
Well, the other thing is like, because he's one of those guys that like he doesn't have to act. Like if you see Werner Herzog, you just saw him. Like, give him a script. That voice is what you will get. He will read those words like that. That's all he does.
All right. He's got such weird things going on, you know, under the surface.
Well, I wonder, like, I mean, I was just thinking about this today because I was watching SNL, and there was an episode when Helen Hunt was on to promote the movie she was in with Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson guested on it, and there was a whole bit where a whole bunch of the SNL cast all showed up and did their Jack Nicholson impersonations. And I got to thinking about this, and then Jack Nicholson like did it, and the whole audience claps, you know, and it was kind of like the whole Bart Simpson say the line thing. I just kind of wonder, it's like, because like guys like Jack Nicholson, Jimmy Stewart, Charlton Heston, William Shatner, like they're not in their head thinking, I'm going to say this like this. Right? Like, there's only so much control you have over your prosody. And there's just some uncanny, unmistakable thing that we're like, oh, I like Jimmy Stewart talking, you know? And it doesn't really matter what it is. Like, and all of these guys kind of have that thing where, like, even Will Shatner, who a lot of people think is a hack, and I don't think that's fair. But, like, you'll listen to William Shatner say anything because he says it in that William Shatner way. And, like, I was thinking about this watching Jack Nicholson on SNL. Like, show up and say, like, he said a bunch of his famous lines, you can't handle the truth and all this stuff. And it's just like in his head where he's like, because he's not like, is he trying? Or is it just like if he was saying this to, like, if he was mad at his mom and saying, you can't handle the truth, mom? Like, is that all the work he's doing? Or is there some like craft that he's put 30 years into how he says that? Like,
I always assume, like, I try to be funny at work, right? Because it's a fun hobby. And I remember this one time, there's this woman, there's a woman I work with and a man I work with. And the man is reading this joke off Reddit. And he just said, he's like, oh, yeah, it looks like dolphins are now second most intelligent creature to man, which moves women to third place. And we all laughed at it. And the woman there, it's not she didn't understand it. She just didn't hear it. She said, wait, what? What did you say? And I was like, if you were a dolphin, you would have got it. And that, it was just like a dumb joke.
That should kill. That's good. If your timing and delivery is right, that should kill.
Sure, but like it went up the chain to like my managers and stuff. And my manager, he didn't even like me at the time. He thought that was the funniest shit ever. He laughed his ass off for months. He used to golf with my dad, and he'd be like, he'd just start laughing in the middle of golfing, dolphin, you know. And I was like, that always felt like the joke that just kind of got away from me. And I remember just being like, this, okay, I've said way fucking funnier things than this. How come this is the thing everybody laughs at?
Well, you know, like, well,
you can't guess.
Scott Adams has said that like there's a famous Dilbert cartoon from the 90s where the pointy-haired boss walks up to the engineer guy and says, "My laptop is frozen again. How do I fix it?" And the engineer says, "Remember, you have to hold it upside down and shake it to reboot." And then the boss walks away happy. And the whole joke is that it's an Etch-a-Sketch and the boss is an idiot. And I remember like in the way back when Scott Adams, like his commentary on that is, this by far is the most popular sketch or cartoon I have ever published. That one out of all the shit he ever did is like stands out as the funniest fucking thing. And
No,
it
I
is
remember
good.
doing this.
I sometimes think about
Me
that.
and my
with, like,
friend wanted to. So Morgan was in a sketch comedy group in college with Tanner, and they wanted people to write sketches for him. So me and my friend wrote a sketch for them, and part of it was just making fun of like British humor and stuff like that. And it was making fun of like how in the Revolutionary War they all stood in line, but one of the stupid little throwaway jokes was they said "fire at will," and then there was a guy there named Will, and he was like, "No, don't fire at me," and they're like, "Well, who should we fire at?" And it was just this, and Morgan took it to her sketch comedy group, told them about it, and she's like, "Yeah, they don't want to use it, but they said that fire at will joke was the funniest thing ever. It killed." And I was like, "It wasn't that funny. The rest of the sketch was way funnier."
Oh my gosh. Well, I kind of imagine that that's happened a million times to different one-hit wonder bands.
Well, yeah, it's the damn. Anytime you bring up Anchorman and somebody's like, "Well, that escalated quickly," like, that wasn't.
So do you guys watch a lot of Studio C then?
Oh no!
Want to hear something crazy? I just talked to the producers of Studio C today.
Did
'cause
you?
I'm hiring some girl from away from them, so I had to call them and ask them about a reference. So,
I bet you've seen more Studio C than any of us.
I've watched a bunch.
Who's seen the most?
Risto.
I've watched a bunch of it.
Risto? No, not me.
Risto.
I've seen. So
if you insist on the E, I just want to say I have to roll the R. Like if it's American, it's Risto.
Risto.
But otherwise, it's Risto.
No, Studio C's not my.
I can't remember when, but somehow, some way, I found some sort of marathon of it once, and so I saw a bunch of it in a row, like in one sitting.
No, I'll have some friends and family I know, and they try and show me stuff, and it's always that awkward moment when you don't laugh at the end of something.
Somebody shows you like a 5-minute fucking video, and you're like, "Ah, fuck, okay."
I'll tell you what's
better.
surprising about that one is all these years later it comes out and that's the one that was gay.
Yeah, I know.
No, it was that one.
No, they've got some good stuff, but I was at BYU Idaho when two things blew up: Studio C and Imagine Dragons. So now I hate both of those things. Everybody's constantly trying to show me the new Imagine Dragons song or the new.
I get the feeling that there was some point in my life that I saw Studio C and thought that was genuinely funny, but I think just
They
have been funny a couple times.
Their viral one.
Did I cut you off, Jared? I think I did.
No, you didn't. No, they got that one that the guy keeps getting hit in the face with the soccer ball. That one was actually pretty funny.
Oh yeah, they did that. That went legitimately viral, right?
They have.
My mom showed me that. My mom showed me that, so they had to get to dark corners.
They're funnier than I give them credit for, and
yeah,
I am a little bit biased against them because I was so annoyed.
How long has Studio C been around?
So it was it was a group of people that they were called Divine Comedy in BYU.
Yeah,
and then
17 seasons.
Yeah, they quit to go to Studio C, and they blew up big in like 2012, late 2012.
They're still in production.
Yeah, it's just new people.
They're turning it into, but they made a movie, the original guys, and that movie just dropped this year with Angel Studios.
Those guys.
Same guys.
I watched the review that they did on Midnight Ward.
Midnight.
I don't know what the
Midnight Ward. Why don't they call it Midnight Ward? That would be the better name.
Yeah, that's kind of actually that's kind of a cool.
That kind of fits.
Studio C new clip 2 days ago, and it's the same old actors. 4
They
days.
had one good one. It was about an extra who was like the producer's son, and just kept like. I mean, the scene obviously wasn't about him. He's just sitting at a table eating food while the main actors are acting, but he keeps like stopping the scene and like asking for his line or his motivation or whatever, and he's just an extra. That one was pretty funny. They got some good ones.
Top
Risto,
soccer
does your
shootout.
does your
91
weird
million views.
does your weird Christian cult produce any bad art?
Lots.
Do you have some bad comedy? Can you link us to some bad Nazarene stand up?
Oh,
we have John By the Way. Who's the Nazarene John By the Way?
Lots. There's I can't remember. There's some banana comedy thing. I don't know if it was from our group.
That's not Banana Man, not Ray
No.
Comfort.
No, I think it was different. But it's to the point where I like avoid all Christian movies.
They're bad. They're just
yeah, they are pretty bad. They're super bad. My comedy was like I like things kind of like in the Kids in the Hall vein, or like So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I need to rewatch that. That's another one I haven't seen since the 90s. I think I haven't seen that since like since it was out on video after being in the theater.
Well, that wasn't like super funny, but it's kind of that dry, understated comedy.
I get you.
You know, like
Kids
that.
in the Hall.
Werner
Did you watch
Herzog
the Kids
play.
in the Hall reboot?
That
I watched it. Yeah,
It was good. I
pretty
remember
good.
laughing quite a bit. Thought it was great. The way they brought it back was really great. That was hilarious.
Ooh, but have you seen Lady Ballers?
You did. Tell us about it.
I have not watched it.
I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it. I laughed more than I thought I would. The first hour is a clusterfuck that doesn't make any sense, that relies almost completely on like, oh, that guy just got hit in the face type comedy, and like weird little setups that never pay off throughout the entire movie. Like there's a guy who was traumatized by a mascot doing a humping motion, and he has kidnapped the mascot and kept it in the basement of his cabin forever. And when he leaves to be on the Lady Ballers team, he leaves the mascot and says, "You be quiet." And then that never pays off. I don't understand it. It was mostly stupid. But I laughed more than I thought I would. One of the big problems is they made an entire movie with 0 actors. You know,
That's
they
hard
just-
to do.
Yeah, they had a couple YouTubers that did a decent job, and then they had the entire cast of the Daily Wire had to make an appearance.
The only movie I can
And
think
Ted
of-
Cruz. They had fucking Ted Cruz, and all Ted Cruz does is go in like exactly what it is in the trailer. He walks into the stadium, sees Jeremy Boring's character's wife, says, "Hey, are these seats taken?" And he looks at her, and she looks very mad. He goes, "Oh, never mind," and walks away. That's it. That's his entire.
That is like his performance is in the trailer. That's
That's the entire performance. That's the entire joke. It's like a Marvel movie but it's worse than any Marvel movie you've ever seen with cameos. It's stupid.
Yeah, 'cause, like I know a lot of people, even like
That's a guy from The Thing.
Who was it? Was it Short Fat Otaku? It was one of these guys, but they were talking about how like Daily Wire's response by just making shit is not the right response. You know? Like, because that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, they specifically referenced. I'm trying to think of who it was. Like, Nerdrotic, one of these guys. We're talking about how, like, as hilarious as it is to watch the whole Disney Snow White thing blow up in their fucking face. Like, for Daily Wire to crank out, because that's the other thing. Is like,
they admitted to rushing it.
Yeah, the speed at which they're cranking this shit out, like, and putting Brett Cooper, I mean, they're making the most obvious hack moves, and yeah, like that's not the answer, guys.
So I've heard,
you know, like for one thing, like it's one thing to respond to this, like, but they should do the SNL thing. You do a fucking skit.
I know.
You do 3 minutes on like Lady Ballers. That's a 3-minute sketch.
Yeah.
If you tighten that up, that's what you get out of that. But making a movie out of that just sounds like shit.
I don't know if you ever saw The Ringer. Have you seen that? It's it's a Johnny Knoxville movie where
where
in order to he fakes being retarded to join the Special Olympics. And the best parts of Lady Ballers are just like basically mimicking that movie.
That
and
was
that movie
also a
was
South Park storyline.
Yeah.
They both ripped off South Park storyline.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. I got a friend whose opinion on movies I trust, who tells me that Terror on the Prairie was actually really good. And I don't know. I just expect
I heard it was okay.
I expect everything Daily Wire produces to be dog shit, but my friend
No,
says that
there's-
that one was actually really good.
I don't know
Well,
if it'll be good or not, but they
they
just announced they're making a cartoon starring
Patrick Warburton? Yeah.
They should
and Corolla.
They should hire Mike Judge, have him do a few things.
He would. I bet you he would. Maybe. I mean, but I mean,
good.
Patrick Warburton's top. I mean, it's at least top tier voice talent. And Corolla. I mean, he did. What was that
But again, they've got like
Comedy Central thing. They had a cartoon that Corolla was a voice on.
Well, they've also got the Daily Wire like talking guys doing, but like Candace Owens is voicing something in that cartoon. And I'm like, don't stop.
Well,
Candace Owens is not an actor. She's not even good at what she does.
Yeah, and good writing goes a long ways. You can even have bad actors. You just have good writers, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Troy says his first concert was Night Ranger and Cheap Trick. Man, that's some oldies but goodies. Night Ranger, those guys are killer. In Vegas in 1985.
Mine was the Killers, 09.
My first
No, actually, I take it back. It wasn't the Killer. I wish it was. My first concert was my girlfriend at the time in high school said, "Hey, do you want to go see a Casting Crowns concert?" And I was like, "I don't know who that is." She's like, "They're a Christian rock band." I was like, "Oh, no, I don't." And she's like, "Well, my mom already bought the tickets for you." And I was like, "Well, fuck." And so we went and we go to this concert, this Casting Crowns, and they are from like Georgia. They're the like very stereotypical Christian rock band. And everybody's like got their hands in the air waving. And I'm just sitting there like an asshole. I can't keep from laughing. And my girlfriend's like, shut up. You're embarrassing me. Shut up. And one of the funniest things ever happened. They were talking about this humanitarian work that they've been doing in India, this little village where they were trying to get water, like running water into the village. And the lead singer gets up there talking about how, well, we got all the piping done for that village in India. And we're going to go back there in the spring and we're going to turn that water on. And I'll tell you what, India is the land of 1,000 gods. Heck, they worship cows down there in India. I'll tell you what, when that water turns on, it's going to be Jesus turn that water on. And everybody just freaks out. And I'm just laughing my ass off. And my girlfriend's embarrassed as all hell. And that was my first concert. It was Casting Crowns, not the Killers. But I wish it were the Killers.
I almost went to the same first concert, but mine was Counting Crows, I think.
Okay, I'd rather go to Casting Crowns.
There were most of the Christian bands for the 90s were pretty bad, but there were a few good ones. Flip and we've talked about the Danielson family.
Yeah, the thing about Danielson's though is that like they're one of those bands that if you just played them for people, they'd be like, what a weird, quirky band with interesting, thought-provoking lyrics. But then when you go, they're Christians, you go, oh, I get it. Sometimes, but only sometimes. Because they're not club you over the head Christian. They happen to be Christian.
Well,
it's a very different thing.
It's the club you over the head guys that are annoying, because the Casting Crowns dudes, they were actually, most of them were pretty musically talented. Like the drummer was great. The lead guitarist was awesome. He was shredding every now and then. But then like he gets up there to sing a song that he wrote and his lyrics are, "My Redeemer lives," for like 3 solid minutes. That's it. Those are the only lyrics. He's shredding between each, "My Redeemer lives," but that's all it is. And I'm like, oh, your lyrics just ruin this whole thing for me because it's just nothing. You're just saying platitudes.
Yeah, I think that's it. You need to also get your whatever you're creating, your art. It also needs to be good.
Yeah.
It was good when George Harrison did it.
Family was like
Things I
super
noticed
creative.
about things I noticed about Christian rock immediately is so many suspended chords.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of suspended chords. But also like the thing you're talking about, like repeating the chorus, like just repeating the line. There's an awful lot of that. Although if you put it in the category of like worship music, well, okay. Because like, you know, like for example, when my Buddhist friend died, I saw a Buddhist funerary rite. And you talk about repeating words, you know, like that.
But aren't those mantras?
Well, yeah, that's exactly. But like, because there's one mantra, like, you know, because the thing was, you know, 40, 50 minutes long. And there's one mantra in particular, I don't even remember, the Oni Padme Mane, something, whatever. But there was one part where, you know, we were invited to participate, and they said, you know, and it's optional. We're going to say it several hundred times, and they weren't kidding. But somewhere, I wish I could remember how to find it. But somewhere on YouTube, there's this great thing where there's this guy, and he's a drummer, and he's a drummer in a Christian worship band. And it's like, Christian worship drummers, stop doing these things. And the first one is, I can't remember what he called it, but it was, you know, if you imagine a drummer doing a lot of like rolling on the low toms gently and building and building and building. And he talked about like, stop doing this. And like literally the next time I was scanning through the radio and happened upon Christian rock, you know, they started a song and I heard that thing happen, that rolling thunder. I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, so I take it they had Christian rock in your sect, Risto?
Yeah,
in Mormonism, that's not a thing. There's no Mormon rock. Does not exist. They tried in the 2000s. It did no.
Yeah, most of it was pretty bad, but there was actually some good stuff. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard of any of these bands, but like Starflyer 59. It was
only as a name.
They were good, like a shoegazer band. There was a band called Poor Old Lou that I think they knew one of the guys from Sunny Day Real Estate, and they came out of the Seattle, you know, like grunge scene.
But were these bands like that were like the Danielsons, where unless somebody told you, oh, they're a Christian band, you wouldn't pick up on it? It's not like worship music.
Like musically, you wouldn't, you know. I mean, Danielson, their lyrics are like explicitly Christian, like super duper Christian, but the music isn't.
I don't know, because I'm trying to think, like, I mean, because I guess I've only mostly listened to Ships and then the Rubbernecker and stuff like that, where it's stuff where it's like, if somebody tells you, it's like, oh, I can see the analogy. But just listening to it passively, I'm like, I didn't pick up immediately, oh, there's a big Christian message here.
Well, the music's so weird, but if you go look, like their first album's called A Prayer for Every Hour. It's 24 songs.
I guess I don't know if I listened to that one.
I mean,
that one I guess would be. Well, like, did you ever hear of Smoking Popes?
No.
Because they were a 90s punk rock band, and they were kind of funny because they broke up for a while because the lead singer like had some kind of, I don't know, medical event, and he thought he was going to die, and he pledged his life to Jesus and renounced rock and roll and all this shit. But like they put out an album, and I remember thinking, like, because there's one song on the album is the band of Smoking Popes, and what's the Destination Failure? That might be. It's funny. The Smoking Popes are an interesting band because their whole shtick was they did 90s upbeat power pop, but the singing was like crooner style. Extremely strange band. But anyway, they had a song that was just like, on the surface, like, oh, this is just a love song. And then I found out, like, oh, at this point, the guy had like converted to evangelical Christianity. And you're like, oh, this is in that context. This is very obviously about Jesus. But if you didn't know that, you think like, oh, I mean, like the South Park joke, you know, just take love songs and replace baby with Jesus. This was that sort of that kind of thing, not quite that ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I need to go back and revisit the Danielsons, because Ships, like, that's the album I've listened to most is Ships, and I don't get a big, strong Christian message from that.
Well, the thing is with, like, if you want good, like, Christian or even religious media, it's got to be art first and message second, because things like, I don't know, I love the Book of Eli, and that feels To me, the ending especially is like decidedly Christian. It's a Denzel Washington movie.
Oh,
well, I guess I can't say the ending.
Yeah, I won't spoil it. I actually really like it's post-apocalyptic. Denzel Washington plays this guy named Eli. He reads the Bible a lot, and it didn't seem like a movie that its main message is Christianity, but it has a very Christian ending, basically. And I actually love that movie.
Troy, do you think the 8-track of Saturday's Warriors anywhere where you could get your hands on it, that would be a gem? You think that's gone forever?
Well, and for me, like I get more Christian message out of Kurosawa movies than I do out of any Christian movies that are ever made.
There's Christian stuff everywhere.
Yeah, but if you just take things like epic storytelling, because if you just put the Bible in that tradition, then it's just part of the.
Yeah, but there's other stuff that's more.
Storytelling.
There's other stuff that's more overtly Christian. That's just in the imagery for sure.
Wasn't that the whole part of the whole controversy with Harry Potter? Is like, because back when Harry Potter was loved by the left, whereas it was all a secret Jesus analogy.
What? I don't remember that.
Well, just because a lot of people
thought the Christians hated it because it was witchcraft.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There was the switcheroo. It was the left, and then now it's all switcheroo.
Oh well, now they're not saying it's like a secret Jesus message. They're saying it's a secret anti-Semitic message because.
Oh yeah, because of the goblins.
For the time being, the left gives a fuck about the Jews right now. When it helps them, they can shit on, Harry Potter.
Well, people
they saw all
that. They say it about everything. Like I remember people saying that about The Matrix, just because it had biblical language in it.
Well, he also dies.
He died
in the thing in a cross position.
Yeah.
But I was like, you clearly didn't watch this close enough to understand the themes going on. On the surface, I can see that, but not if you pay attention to what they're saying.
Well, The Matrix is clearly a trans woman's journey from masculinity to femininity. Anyway,
it was always an allegory about.
That's always what it was supposed to be.
Just that's such bullshit. No,
I know you're full of shit right now, Wachowskis.
No. Troy, I need to because I was not. I'm sure at some point in my life I saw Saturday's Warrior, but
I didn't listen to much of it either.
It's not in my brain the way it's in the brains of a lot of other Mormon kids.
Yeah, me neither.
Because one thing, because my parents
we should
were
get
weird,
into it.
even though they were both totally boomers. For example, I asked my mom once, because again, they were totally boomers. They were teenagers in the 60s, And I said, were you ever into the rock and roll scene? And my mom said, I had a crush on Pat Boone. And that's literally as far as that went. And then I asked my dad, because my mom was in Brazil, so maybe there's a little bit of an excuse there. But I remember when I was a teenager, I was a kid, and I learned the Stones played Lagoon,
What the fuck?
Yeah, the Stones played Lagoon, and the Beach Boys had a song about Salt Lake City. And I asked my dad, Dad, did you ever see a concert? And he said, I saw one concert, The Fifth Dimension. I'm just like, oh, jeez. And that was the extent of my boomer parents' rock and roll. Literally that.
So you guys, I don't normally get to pick the brain of Mormons your age, because I'm mostly just talking with the missionaries or just random people online. So but you guys weren't encouraged to listen to Christian rock from you?
No, I'd say we were pretty kind of discouraged from watching Christian or listening.
I was invited to go.
It wasn't ever explicit, but it was they said the wrong. They're not the right, sect.
I was invited to go to a thing that Jared was talking about with my girlfriend at the time, and my parents didn't let me.
What? So when I'm trying to remember now, because in the 90s, so there's Lex Diazevedo and not Michael McLean.
Striker.
No. But Mormon. I'm talking about Mormon, the Mormon musical.
The Mormon rap. The Mormon rap, man.
But there's the big ones were Lex Diazevedo and what's his name? It's not Michael McLean, because that's Michael McLean, but you know who I'm talking about? The KSL he was just in KSL. They had an article about him doing the 30th annual fucking
I know what you're
Christmas
talking
rep-
about.
You know what I'm talking about? And like, because my uncle did a lot of work with him and stuff. But I remember like so Mission, right? Supposedly we're only allowed to listen to Motab and like explicitly Mormon music, and I hated almost all of it. I remember like at Seagull Book and Tape there was like kind of a folky sort of Jewel type girl that I remember not being terrible, but yeah, it was almost all terrible. Just
Oh man, I hated the music we were like. There was this Donny Osmond's nephew did this like really EFY sounding song that my companion loved and listened to constantly. It was A More Excellent Way, and it's from that, I don't know, scripture in Paul, I guess is how that's worded, but it doesn't work well in a song. It sounds really weird in English to say a more excellent way. And then the other thing that was really popular was the Joseph Smith tribute. Have you ever heard that? You guys were out of the church when that, because that I think came out in like 2009 or 10.
Oh yeah, I was long.
You want a good. I'll send you some songs. Like they have a whole like twangy, shitty country pop song about Porter Rockwell.
It is Michael McLean. That is who I'm talking about. Sorry.
No,
Who's
that's it.
Who is the guy the voice guy who was in Steely Dan and
It's Michael McDonald.
oh, am I getting Michael McDonald and Michael McLean mixed up? That's a very Mormon thing to do.
So was it more okay? Like, was it more okay listening to non-church music, just like, standard top 40 stuff?
Standard, but my parents went all the way down the Satanic Panic rabbit hole. So like,
I think yeah.
They totally freaked out about Zeppelin and AC/DC and.
See, I'm about 10 years behind these guys, and there wasn't any Satanic Panic when I was being brought up, but there was definitely anything that swears, don't listen to. But also
no swearing, and then the Satanic Panic.
And seriously,
Satanic Panic, it was fine.
I don't think my parents would have told me not to listen to Christian rock, but they definitely would have kind of like raised an eyebrow if I was listening to Christian rock.
Yeah,
I remember they're just so used to Christians being very combative.
When I was a teenager, I would keep like a stack of 10 to 15 CDs like on the piano in the living room, so that like, I had like my car stack and then that stack, and I would and then my, catalog, and I would sort of cycle things through. And my mom would look at the stack of CDs sometimes, and one day I came home and my mom said, "What kind of music is this, Rasputin?" And I just had to say, like, I don't know how to tell you, Mom. It's like, it's three girls that are obsessed with the 19th century and they play cellos and it's rock music. It's completely bizarre. She goes like, but why do they call themselves Rasputin? Rasputin was a horrible man. But that was as far as it went with my parents. Like, they weren't typical Mormons in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, when I was 16, not even 16, when I was like 14 or 15, when Hollywood Video was a thing. And my mom was signing me up for my teenager's membership for Hollywood Video. And the guy asked, like, well, do you want him to be able to rent R-rated movies? And I said, like, well, if I do classy stuff like Shawshank Redemption. And she's like, oh, okay. So like, because, at that time, the prophet said, don't watch R-rated movies.
My parents wouldn't have let me.
Like,
no,
my mom understood the difference between like art and trash.
Oh, my mom did not. My mom did not, because she went through a long period of time where she wouldn't let me watch PG-13 movies unless she first watched them. And that was when fucking Lord of the Rings came out.
Oh, wow.
And the problem was, if she would have watched it first, she would have let me watch it. But the movie's 3.5 hours long. She's not going to watch it.
She never even tried.
So I told her, like, I finally convinced her to let my uncle vouch for me. And he's like, yeah, he can watch it. Okay, I guess you can watch it. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I'm getting good. My mom doesn't understand art in the weirdest way possible, because she will, like, I remember her going into my dad into their bedroom on a Sunday when my dad had the rabbit ears on and like King of the Hill was playing. and she'd always be like, "Steve, this is so bad," and it was because
so wholesome.
no, I know. That's the thing. Like King of the Hill is like it's because it says ass, damn, and hell,
Yeah.
and
Oh my
sometimes bitch, and it
I
was.
couldn't watch that.
And I tried to. My dad would try to explain to her like this is about a father and a son learning to overcome their differences and like grow close to one another. Like half of the episodes are Hank Hill learning to love people despite their differences. Okay. You watch a mentally ill woman choose between 16 different men every day. Like that. How is this better? It's like, because it doesn't say damn and ass. And when it does, it bleeps them out.
Did you see the King of the Hill episode where Hank catches Bobby smoking?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I just barely watched that recently.
I want to watch. I've
it.
never watched the show in order. I need to sit down and watch the series.
That's in season 2.
Yeah,
and he makes him
Where
smoke
is
a
it?
whole pack, and then they all get addicted.
Hulu.
They all get addicted. Yeah,
That's funny.
See, that rings a bell. Where can you stream it right now? Do you know?
It's on Hulu.
On
I'm pretty
Hulu.
sure.
I don't know if
It's
I
on
have
Hulu, and I'm trying to watch all of it, and I'm almost to season 3.
It's
Man,
fucking
I
great.
need to do that. I remember that show because, like, I remember at the time where, like, because people like shat on it, it's like, oh, that show's so conservative. On the left, like, you know, that show was good because, like, the conservatives didn't like it and the liberals didn't like it. Because the liberals didn't like it because they thought it was like, you know, all super conservative because Hank Hill was super conservative. But like Jared says, the whole show is about Hank Hill learning how to adapt to the new world, you know, and
Yeah.
overcoming some of his, you know, more entrenched ideas, you know.
But
Everybody
there's
got
some
that show wrong.
There's
It is
some
certainly
stuff
not a
where he
conservative.
wins, though. He wins, his idea wins. But one of my favorite episodes is there's this professor who's kind of like being flirty with Peggy all the way through it. He's like an archaeologist, and by the end of it, he makes her feel like an idiot because he's just kind of like a well actually guy, and she got something wrong, and then he just kind of corrected her.
Oh,
But-
the archaeology one.
yeah, but by
Yeah,
the
I
end
just-
of it, he's trying to like crawl out of a hill, and Hank just keeps pushing him back down in the hole. Just like, get back in the hole, get back in the hole, just like shoving him right back down. And
Okay, you prove you're stronger than me, you big strong man. Let's just quit
keeps
this.
pushing him down again and again.
That was a great. I just barely watched that one. I remember one of my favorite moments on that show is when Peggy finds out that Dale's wife is cheating on him with John Redcorn, and she's like, "Oh, Hank, we have to say something." And he's like, "How did you not know about this?" Like it's everybody else but Peggy has known about it forever because it's just fucking obvious.
No, that's,
And-
I mean, that's, you know, like, that's what makes that show so brilliant, though, is because like that happened to me. Like I was the guy that like my friends and family were coming to be like, "Are you worried at all about your wife spending time with that guy?" And I'm like, "No, it's okay. You know, it's fine."
He needs
Yeah.
therapeutic massages.
Well, so there's an episode where Bobby tries to be a child obesity model.
Yes.
And Hank talks him, like pulls him out of the show at force, like drives all this place and pulls him out of the force. And the kid's mad. And you'd think if it was modern day, it'd be like, you need to learn to accept your kid and he's fabulous and all that sorts of stuff. But no, by the end of it, all these bullies like have a food fight and destroy the whole entire thing. And Bobby's thankful to Hank for pulling him out of that.
Yeah, Hank like forcibly pulled him. Like it was the husky gentleman's clothing
If it was
line.
current
or
day,
whatever.
if it was current day, Hank would be the bad guy for doing that.
Well, and that show goes the people that it savages the most are like the more modern, you know, folks that move into the neighborhood, the more modern sensibilities and the.
Well, that's Mike Judge is good at making fun of people because that was, if you go back to Beavis and Butthead, that was their teacher. He was this real modern hippie douchebag, and he writes that character great.
But then at the same time, Bobby is a kid who's kind of constantly leaning towards progressive stuff, and Hank's learning to deal with it. You know, not like today progressive 1990s.
Well, so I'll compare it to Turning Red, right? That movie, that's the one. It's all about a period, obviously. It's this girl. It's a newish Disney movie. This girl she turns into a red panda when she gets old enough, and you find out that's a thing that her whole family has. And
conservatives freaked out about it too much. But at the end, what happens is like there's this rift between the new generation, the main character girl, and her mom. And oftentimes, like in King of the Hill, there's a meet each other in the middle, or sometimes you were right, sometimes I was right, but usually a meet each other in the middle. And in this, it was the moral of the story. It could have been a really good movie. It turns out to be, no, the younger generation is completely right. The older generation, they literally turned their sacred temple into a gift shop.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not even kidding you. It's a sacred temple that they're the guardians of. And the daughter teaches them to lighten up and totally lose everything. And they just turn it into a fucking gift shop. How is this the moral of the story?
That movie, You Got Mail, that movie blew my mind because that movie is the big bookstore wins out over the mom and pop store and they fall in love with each other and she decides to just join up with the big bookstore. What?
I know I saw that movie once in the 90s, but I'm trying to think, like, when was the last time you saw that? Did you?
Well, you didn't have the same crush on Meg Ryan that Chris did.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was way back then. I can't watch her now.
I bet you. I'm pretty sure that I saw that movie when I might have seen that and Sleepless in Seattle when I was a missionary. I watched a lot of movies.
Watch that whole thing and watch how the whole thing is pushing towards the we need to move on to this corporate world. No more mom and pop stores. And it has that in there as a positive message for real.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was out of control.
I watched a lot of good movies on my mission. I watched Hot Fuzz for the first time on my mission.
I need to rewatch that.
That's funny. That's a good
I
one.
need to watch that one too. I haven't.
The thing is, like, the one time I watched Hot Fuzz, I was watching it with a guy and his friend who were such fans that they literally said every line of the movie.
Oh, fuck, I hate that.
It's terrible for a first watch. But there's a Hot Fuzz 2 out already, isn't there?
Is there?
I thought it was.
I didn't know that.
Those,
you know what? Oh, so because
they just released the first movie, Hunchback of Notre Dame movie.
I don't know if you saw on the Red Letter Media wrap up, Jay liked the Seth Rogen Teenage Turtle show. Jay thought it was really good.
I'm sure it's not
And now
actually
I'm curious
as bad as
about it.
everybody thought it was going to be, you know?
There's no
Yeah.
part 2. I was right.
I have to imagine that I'm sure they ruined Splinter because the trailer portrays him as like a goofy, dopey douchebag. And I'm like, I don't
The
like
new
that.
one?
Yeah.
It's totally trans allegory. It's 100% trans allegory. It's found family. We're the weirdo freaks who need to.
Is it?
It's
Yeah.
100% trans allegory.
But I'm just curious about it, 'cause, like, Jay liked it, and I feel like those guys aren't real keyed into the woke thing, but they seem
They're not.
to know.
If there was
They
a
seem to at
world
least
where
understand what it
they're
is.
not keyed into it, it's 100%. It's found family. Embrace your freaks. The humans are bad, which was never part of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that is weird.
And Splinter hates humans, for sure not a part of Ninja Turtles. And then he convinces all of Bebop and Rocksteady and all those guys that they're all mutants and they need to come together because all the mutants should join.
Wait,
together.
Bebop and Rocksteady are their buddies in this?
Bebop and every single mutant becomes. That's what I'm saying. It's trans allegory.
It's queers versus whites.
Every single mutant decides that they were a marginalized whatever thing. And that's why I said it's like X-Men.
Yeah.
It's basically just X-Men. It's X-Men for Ninja Turtles. And
Well,
now
X-Men, but Professor X hates the mutants.
Yeah, but Professor X hates
the
mutants,
humans.
just doesn't trust them. Well, we at least shouldn't kill them. He decides by the end, whereas the other guy wanted to kill them. But Bebop, Rocksteady, every single bad mutant that they ever fought, all just joins forces with them. They all become a family together. Because they're different. Different people need to stick together. I mean, I guess if there's any place where it seems like you could sneak in a trans allegory more easily, it would be mutant turtle stuff. The same way that
Matrix.
The same way that X-Men was just like a perfectly easy place to slip all that messaging in there, but it's 100% there. Like, I'm not overreading it.
Huh.
It's
now I want to see it because it's I wonder.
Well,
what it
also,
is.
I think a lot of times that those red letter media guys, I haven't watched them in a while, but they were seeming to get so just fucking jaded that I'm pretty sure I can't remember what the movie was. It was some really shitty Marvel movie where they asked Mike at the end, like, "Do you recommend it?" And he's like, yeah. And they were like shocked at him. And he's like, I mean, everything's shitty now, so yeah.
For normies, if they hide ideology well enough, I mean, the Midnight Mormons are touting the Barbie movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's insane.
Like, if people are normie
Like,
enough to stuff,
I mean, that's like I can imagine that like if the characters and filmmaking, the storytelling, if that's all in place,
we've always
I
said
can overlook a axe grinding as long as you're telling a good story. You know,
we've always said it'd be interesting to try to, if we were given all the same restrictions, to see if you could somehow pump out a workable story. And I'm sure more than a few smart people were given all the same restrictions and angles and had to make something out of it a little bit better. And that's why, I mean, you can point to the Mad Max. The Mad Max did they replace the protagonist with the men back away story, and nobody noticed it. The more recent,
well, no, people noticed it. They just didn't care because the character wasn't shit. The story wasn't shit.
The most Wolverine,
and that's why people were
did
fine about it. Like, it all made sense in the context of the thing. It was all okay, good, fine.
Most recent Wolverine did it. People liked it. Most recent Terminator 2 did it. Terminator did it. Everybody hated it.
I just remember. I mean, because just with my kid, I can't remember what we were talking about, but we were talking about video games and this stuff and replacing, or like, you know, oh, people didn't like it because it was a woman. And I told him, like, look, man, I was alive in the 80s, and I was there when we all found out that the hero of Metroid was a woman. Nobody was mad. Nobody was mad. Nobody like had a problem. Everybody just went, okay, cool.
And
that was how that went.
and like Alien, you know, the Aliens movies.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
Sigourney
really
Weaver.
It's really weird to pick not Metroid. It's really weird to pick Terminator as something to like woman wash into a new like female character, because like the original hero of Terminator, it had a strong female character. Sarah Connor, like it was a great progression too, because in the first movie she's like a scared, pretty normal woman.
No, that's
who
why
learns
it was
to
the
become
thing.
brave. And then in Terminator 2, she becomes a badass because she knows she has to save her son. It's a fucking cool story. And then of course she divorced James Cameron and he killed her off screen in the next movie, and it fucked up the entire franchise after that. But
the point
you
is,
know.
her character had a progression. Her character, like, it's the classic thing where she starts out, she's low, she's a, you know, I mean, I've never even seen the movie. I've just seen Mr. Plinkett show the scene where she's, you know, working hard in the shitty diner and she knocks over the fucking tray of ice cream, whatever it is. A kid drops ice cream in her apron, all this shit. And it has
You
the
haven't seen
classic
Terminator
at the bottom. Yeah. No, I've never seen.
You never saw part one?
I've seen the censored cable TV 90s broadcast. So that's not Terminator. But how much more have we got? Because I probably ought to get going here.
I gotta. Charlie's staring me down.
Charlie Dog, bring Charlie Dog into the visual space.
No, you gotta watch.
He's ready to walk.
Watch the first two Terminator movies. They're great.
Oh yeah,
I've seen the second. I know I've seen the second one at least once in the 90s. But yeah, that's one of those things where I never like.
And then stop. Like, don't even try to go on from there. It'll just piss you
Three
off.
is
that's one of those things I think it's funny.
Three's not as bad as like the most recent ones, but
even
it's
still, they
it's
start
totally unnecessary.
unwinding the sensibility of the story. Even if
Yeah, they just they kill Sarah Connor off screen. Like on the third
that one has a
movie,
problem where the story got messed up before it went woke. Even
I've never seen a Terminator past Terminator 2, and I never
Don't.
even saw Terminator 1.
Yeah, you don't need to.
But I have watched the Red Letter Media reviews of the Terminator movies, like
the Dr.
Science Man explain.
I've watched that a dozen times, but I've watched all the other reviews.
And that's what
more
they're
than once.
pointing to. They're pointing to that the storyline gets so jacked up that it doesn't even need to be woke to be. That's one that doesn't even need to be woke to be bad.
Yeah.
And then they went ahead and made it woke too.
I think I'm gonna watch that next.
Yeah.
They're great movies. Second
Yeah,
one,
the first two.
fucking great.
Who was it last week that was asking me my opinion on Rumpelstutz, whatever that peppermint booze is? I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, somebody mentioned it, but it's ethanol delivery system. It's gross.
Not good.
I mean, no, that's because like Fireball is one of the best selling things in the world, and I think it's because it's ethanol delivery system. It's something. The point of it is that shooting it and sipping it is the exact same experience.
Oh, it's
so you might as well shoot it. I think that's how that works.
Probably. I hate Fireball.
Here's our last video. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, if you're a boy and you ever plan on being intimate with a girl.
No, thank you. Anyways, I'm an aircraft mechanic, and this is an airplane factory. And I'm actually in front of the aircraft's flap bearings, which are these components right here that are commonly referred to as canoes. However, unlike the canoes that were gifted to the Fellowship in The Lord of the Rings by the Lady Galadriel and her husband Celeborn as they were leaving the gilded realm of Lothlorien, these canoes will probably never be used as a funeral raft for Boromir after he fell defending the Hobbit Merry and Pippin from an onslaught of orcs and Urkai that were sent to intercept the Fellowship by Saruman. And after being laid in his funeral raft with his weapons and the weapons of the enemies that he was felled, he was sent over the falls of Rhoros, where he would eventually pass his brother Faramir, who was the captain of the Rangers of Ithilien, and seemingly wrapped in an ethereal light as the swift waters of the Anduin bore Boromir's body to his final resting place in the sea. But I still think that these flap bearings are pretty cool. So, yeah.
That was fucking awesome. That was it. That's the exact response you should have.
It's like, if I had the choice between having dinner with that guy and a beautiful single woman, I would pick that guy because I know that instant conversation with that guy are 100%.
Yep. All right, y'all. I gotta call it good. Risto, thanks for coming on. You're welcome to call on any old time you want to lose a night hanging out with us while wackos around here. So
good to see you guys.
All right.
Thanks so much. And
I'm gonna learn all about your wacky cult.
thanks for jumping on, Jared, even though you come back from a married wedding.
Yeah, I always joke about how there's nothing in the world more depressing than a Mormon wedding. How was it?
I mean, it was just
in
a
closed
reception.
marriages, imprisoned in a closed marriage, but
Yeah.
is it-
No, it was. I wasn't at the temple part, obviously, and it was while I was at work anyway. So I feel bad for my brother because, like, I think my sister, like, there's 6 siblings and my parents, and we got one sister that is able to go to the temple with him now. So,
Oh, that's rough.
yeah,
You're all going to the celestial kingdom.
Yeah, he's the Nephi of the family.
Well, alrighty.
All right, yeah.
We'll see you guys later.
Later. Thanks.